You know what's crazy about these fucking streams? Is that every time I start the stream, like 30 people leave. What? Why? I don't get it. Why did you even come here? Where you just wanted to be in the fucking waiting screen? Like, every time I show up, I've been recording this for the past, like, 3 days. Like, I'll be in the waiting screen. As soon as I fucking turn on my camera and start the show, like, 40 people leave. It's so fucking weird. It's so, like, spooky, honestly. What the fuck? It's, like, so fucking weird. Like, why? Why do you even come? What are you here for? Are you not even waiting for the stream? Like, what? You know? It's like such a weird, mysterious fucking thing. Anyway, guys. Anyway. It's Christmas! And then it's Santa Claus, man, and the room, man. I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. I don't got it in me for today. I don't got any of that in me for today as far as the Christmas music. I just don't. I don't got any time to be singing. I don't got any time for any of that jolly, festive nonsense. I just don't got it in me, right? I don't have time for it. Because we actually have some content lined up for today. And I know everyone's going to be complaining about the late stream times. And I've just come to terms with the fact that I'm living in a curse. I'm living in a curse. And I'm trying really hard to solve it. Every day it resets. And I'm waking up at 4 p.m. every fucking day, no matter what I fucking do. And honestly, I'm gonna reset it tomorrow. But it's been depressing the fuck out of me, I'm not gonna lie. I was so fine a few days ago, and then I realized, like, holy fuck, how do I get out of this cycle, right? And the only way I'm gonna be able to get out of it is if I do a forced reset, which means I'm going to have to wake up this morning and barely get any sleep tomorrow morning on Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve, I'm barely getting any sleep. And I'm just going to do a hard reset. And then I'm going to take it back, right? Because there's no way I'm going to be able to do early streams with my current sleep schedule. It's just not viable and it's not fucking possible, right? There's no fucking way it's going to happen. It's literally not possible. It's like physically not possible. It's not possible in any fucking capacity. It's 2 degrees outside. I want to report that. And everyone's complaining about it. And it's my childhood. I'm out here being like, are you guys pussies? This is life. I love it, actually. I'm the only person who loves it because I'm a psychopath. But today's the day I decided to go do my groceries. 2-degree weather. I'm outside. I'm having a great time. I love the cold. I love the cold. I love the freshness of the cold. I mean, it's cold outside. That's what I like, right? I love the cold. I love the cold. And I'm here for it. I'm here for the winter storm. Now, in any case, motherfuckers, we have a Twitter debate we're going to just probably hop right into. About MAGA communism. We have a MAGA communism debate that we're doing through Twitter Spaces. And I'm doing this for you guys just for content. Because usually when I do Twitter Spaces, thank you so much, Tool. Appreciate it.
I found you in Jackson because I came to admire Stalin after hating him and now I'm here. Get well. American people need you all.
I'm doing this out of the goodness, graciousness of my heart. Because every time I do Twitter Spaces, I make no money. Like, I remember that one time I did a Twitter Space. And I didn't make any whatever. Like, so I'm pretty much doing it for free at this point, right? And I'm doing it because it's such good content and I want to get some good debates going. Because nobody, modern day debate has not contacted me in months. I don't get challenged to debates anymore, right? There's some people in the Discord who look like they want to talk to me. I don't want to fucking talk to you. I don't want to talk to you. Unless you are someone who represents the voice of a... If you're... See, I'm going to be like... Thank you so much, Lionel. I appreciate it. I'm going to be like... I'm not saying this because I'm an asshole. I'm saying this because if you're not a prominent person, I'm not just going to fucking talk to you and have a conversation with you live on stream and waste my viewers' times. I can't talk to all 200 of my viewers, okay? Or however many fucking viewers I have nowadays. I can't talk to every single person, though, no matter how many fucking viewers I have. So if you want to talk to me live, you have to represent a significant number of people. Or else, why are we wasting people's time, right? So I just think it's fucking rude. Like, every fucking person goes in my Discord, hey, Hans, I want to have a talk. Thank you, Dusty Director. Appreciate you, man. I want to have a talk. Who the fuck are you to have a talk with me? You want to have a private conversation? Maybe. But what makes you special? So I'm going to waste everyone's time to talk to you? Why? What do you have to offer that others don't? You want to prove yourself that you're an interesting person? Write something that's interesting. Go write something for me that I find interesting. I don't know, you know, and this is specifically I don't know, man. I just feel like, you know what kids need nowadays? Media training. When you're in 5th grade, you need to be like taught, like, hey, you're not special. There's millions of people like you, and there's millions of carbon copies of you. You're not special, right? That's how I started out as a streamer. I never was entitled and thought I was fucking special. I started gaining traction because of what I was putting out, right? It wasn't like, you know, I was a chatter too. I used to be a chatter as well. I was never the type of person who was like, oh yeah, I'm entitled to, you know, get attention, you know, get special attention. Like, no, I'm an anonymous viewer. Unless I have something to offer, what am I doing here? Wasting people's fucking time, right? A lot of people confuse their own personal story, or whatever that means, with something political. And they think it's like they confuse that with like other people. It's like, no, you have like a self-image problem and you're trying to drag all of us into it. Sorry, no. Like, you need to fucking get in line. There's a lot of people. I mean, the number one rule in life that I think is always remind yourself that you're not fucking special. You want to know that's something I do? I'm a writer. I'm a intellectual. I'm a philosopher. Whatever the fuck you want to call me, right? Before I ever utter anything in public, do you know how fucking, like, much effort I put into just learning and seeing, hey, has this ground been covered before yet? Like, right now, I'm trying to teach myself something about physics. I'm not opening my mouth about it because I want to, like, I'm humbling myself. Other people have already covered this, right? But every fucking person, it seems like, thinks they're so special. Every time there's like a new discovery or whatever the fuck, right? They think they make a new discovery. They just have this idea in their head where they're like, oh yeah, I'm the first person to ever think of this ever, so I'm just gonna go bother people about it. And it's just so narcissistic and egotistical. It's something that fucking pisses me off. It's honestly such a profound shame. It is. It's such a damn shame, is what it is. Those are the words I'm looking for. It's a damn shame, right? The number one lesson in life is you're not special. Every time you want to feel like you're going to do something, ask yourself, has this done before? If this has been done before, what can I learn from the people who have already done this? Before I ever... You guys think I would have just jumped into streaming? I was a Zerka chatter for a few months, or a year even. Not like every day, but like I familiarized myself with how streaming worked before I ever had the audacity to try and become a streamer. Because you have to learn from the people who are already doing this before you want to fucking do it. That's just how anything in life works. And you may think, oh, I can do better than them. You can think that in your head. But before you can be better than anyone at anything, you have to learn from the people who have already done the thing. There's nothing about you that is going to be instantly better, right? Yeah, so that's my rant about that. You know, if you are an intellectual or you're a philosopher, I want you to be up to date about what people are talking about. I'm obsessed with physics right now, and I've always been in a way, because that's where Zizek ended, in some sense, with his book Less Than Nothing. And I feel like Less Than Nothing is the end of Zizek. After Less Than Nothing, I think Absolute Recoil comes after that, and that's a good book, but Less Than Nothing, I think, is the point. Like, that's where quantum physics and Lacan. Like, the real with this French, whatever, bullshit, that's Zizek at his best. And to me, that's like, nobody's really thought beyond that to me for a very long time. So that every time I would see a philosopher or an intellectual, I'd be like, dude, have you read Zizek? Like, this is all over, you know? This is all already addressed. So, you know, it's just frustrating to see people thinking they're special when they're these intellectuals and they're not, right? They're really not. And it's actually similar with Hegel. Have you gotten past Hegel? No, you haven't? Then shut the fuck up! Alright, without any further ado, I'm going to get straight into the MAGA communism debate. And I have to turn on my audio for my BlueStacks.
Eco-communists supporting MAGA communism.
So MAGA communism is an idea which was coined in the community and which was first put out there by me, and it was popularized by Jackson. And I was actually banned on Twitter for a long time, and through the entire duration of the entire ordeal. So a lot of people decided to share their thoughts about MAGA communism while having the privilege of not getting any pushback from the person who basically, you know, wrote the MAGA communism Substack and, you know, is here to defend it. So now I'm back on Twitter, in Elon Musk's Twitter. I'm not officially quite back yet, but I'm here in Twitter Spaces, and I've been here. And I want to hear what people have to say about MAGA communism. Debate me, right? If all the people who had so much shit to say about MAGA communism for so long, well, now the guy himself is here, and now I'm here to debate you about it. Because honestly, my affirmative thesis, if anyone wants a definitive thesis for the topic of debate, it's this. My view is that there is no way to be a communist in any meaningful sense in the United States of America without being a MAGA communist. That is my affirmative thesis. So anyone who's claiming they want to hold me to a position, that's my position. There is no meaningful sense in which you can be a communist in America without also being a MAGA communist in particular. Now, if anyone would like to debate that, the floor is yours. Rev, are none of these people debaters?
Bro, they're all pussies.
I am the Mr. Leftist. I am the official representative of leftism, and I must say that MAGA is quite a terrible movement. Their big MAGA caravan killed my dog, and this means they cannot be good at all, and they cannot be communists.
Is this guy trolling?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
We don't appreciate that.
I am not trolling at all. I am very sincere in my beliefs.
Okay, get him out of here. I don't want to... Yeah. Alright, there's plenty of people who should be able to debate or at least say anything bad about MAGA communism, because so many people had so much bad to say about MAGA communism. And I'm curious, like, what's your angle? There's no way to be a communist in America without being a MAGA communist. The only way you can actually give meaning to what communism is, again, in this country, is by so severely detaching yourself from the left and from the institutional left that you just go full MAGA. And what does MAGA mean? MAGA is the wilderness. MAGA is QAnon. MAGA is all of those militia people. MAGA is the true heart and soul of revolutionary America, right? I'm curious to hear how anyone can refute this basic, simple idea. How can you not be a MAGA communist? I'm curious. If you're going around calling yourself a communist, how can you not be a MAGA communist? And then I also have another startling thesis. If you are considering yourself an intellectual leader of MAGA, how can you not be a communist? What is your plan to take MAGA forward without communism? So I'm not actually just here to debate leftists. I'm also here to debate the right, who rejects MAGA communism. People on the right who reject MAGA communism. What is your plan forward for MAGA? What's your strategy forward for the MAGA movement? How do you preserve the MAGA movement? DeSantis is coming. Trump seems like he's fumbling the bag consistently. How do you make MAGA a living movement without also having it be a communist movement? And what does a communist movement means? It means a movement that is based in the American working class, by the American working class, for the American working class, right? That means MAGA communism basically says we want to take America back to the basics. We want to nationalize the major industries of this country, the energy industry, the steel industry, the heavy manufacturing. We want to have a program where we expropriate monopolies and redistribute them to the small guy. Now, this isn't AOC socialism. It's not the socialism you've heard of, because we're not going to institutionalize everyone and make them work for the government. But what we are going to do is we're going to destroy the power of the monopolies, which have taken over our government, and we're going to allow things to start from scratch. We're going to make it easier for people to start small businesses. We're going to make it easier for people to start up their own forms of enterprises by having easier access to resources and capital. We're going to overhaul the financial system, completely destroy Wall Street, completely nationalize the banking system, so that instead of the Federal Reserve, we actually have a national bank. And the purpose of the national bank is going to be to invest in the infrastructure and industry of this country. We're going to destroy the monopoly capital, and we're going to promote new forms of economic entrepreneurship and businesses. Many of those businesses will inevitably be cooperatives. And that's not probably going to be all of them, but it's going to be a model that's probably going to be promoted. And if you look into the cooperative model, it's not horrible, right? If you're a factory, a small factory of 1,000 or 2,000 people, cooperative isn't necessarily a bad idea, right? Now, there will be other models, sure. We will allow different models to compete. It's going to be similar to China, right? But it's going to be an American version, and the American version is going to have heavy emphasis on the creativity and entrepreneurship of homesteads and individuals, okay? So MAGA
American
communism
Juche.
is going to bring the country back to the people. MAGA doesn't talk about this really. MAGA's really vague about it. We want to follow through on the original promise of MAGA. Give the government and the economy back to the people, right? Because at the end of the day, the ruling class, the elites, and the deep state all get their power from monopoly, big business, the monopolies that control and own our government. And we also have a huge, and this is another angle we're bringing into MAGA communism. There's a huge level of technological change that's occurring right now. You have the rise of AI and AI art and other things, right? That's the one we're most familiar with. We have the rise of automation. We have the rise of brand new information technology, smart cities, all this stuff. We, MAGA communists, want to accelerate the transition into the fourth industrial revolution and Web 3. We want to accelerate that process, not hamper it. We want to promote AI, promote automation. But if we don't do this in a way that is in the benefit of people, it's going to lead to the destruction of civilization. It's going to lead to the ruin, economic ruin, and devastation of millions and millions of people. So we are not against technology. We just want to make sure that it's going to be in the benefit of the people, not the monopolies who are actually stagnating our technological revolution. Now, Eternal Battle 14 is in my YouTube, and he's saying, Haas, Marx will disagree with you right now. Okay, well, you can come make your case. Request to be speaker.
Yeah, Haas, we got someone here. He calls himself a Deleuzian Marxist, so...
All right, let him speak.
All right, so, wait, can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, great. So, about MAGA, I'm personally suspicious of...
All right, well, I'm gonna need a more specific argument from you.
All right.
Yeah.
So, this is anecdotal, but if you go to, certain parks or state parks out in the country, so-called reservations and stuff, you'll see, really rich communities inside of these parks. and like, this is like typically the way it is, like in cities and stuff. Like, there's night patrols and shit like that. But like,
Can you please specify what you're talking about and what you're trying to say?
so I think I remember there being like a kind of criticism back before, like when MAGA first started, got up and going, is that there was a strong like middle class element.
No, it's
that
a
was,
strong
like,
working class
no?
element.
Strong. I'm sorry. What? Strong
A
what?
strong working class component, yes.
Okay. Yeah. No. Of course. But like, hold on. I'm gonna go back a little bit.
What?
Dude, where the fuck do you go, man? You gonna debate?
Hey, can I jump in instead?
Okay, Natalie, sure.
Yeah, so I use my sister's phone. Don't have a mobile cable one myself. Anyways, on the ecology question, about, like, for example, if you destroy wetlands, they're gonna purify your water naturally for you. That just seems like trying to overcompensate for that with technology. We could just use those resources elsewhere. Just seems like being stupid to me.
Can you be more specific about what you're talking about as well?
I wish I wasn't
Thank you
at
so much,
work
PJ.
on. I agree
Appreciate
with
you.
everything
I'm just
you're
saying, like,
but I would love
I'm
to
all
have a
for technology and
conversation with you
development and
about
stuff. It
exactly
seems
what role
there's a bit of a
individual
sort of ignorant,
life plays into this
anti-ecological
model.
bent within some of your movement.
Okay, so what are you? Who is threatening the wetlands?
I'm just saying, like, there's people who say, like, or if we wipe out all the bees, and then we'll use, like, mini drones to, like, pollinate our food for us. That it seems you can just use technology in a smart way and then be more efficient with our resource use.
What does this have to do with MAGA communism?
I'm just saying, why is it anti, like, you don't want eco-communists and stuff being part of MAGA communism?
Because we despise the ideology of ecology. Now, regarding real ecology, that is real ecology without the aesthetic of environmentalism and ecology. I mean, we're not inherently opposed to that. We're just opposed to the ideological aesthetic of ecology, which we find disgusting and which we fully oppose. But if you want to talk about real ecology, I mean, this is mature stuff. You want to talk about the people on the ground who actually deal with this stuff. They don't have this naive mentality of, oh yeah, nature, all this. We're against the ideology of ecology and nature. We're not against the actual real world science. The real one, the people boots on the ground who are actually fucking, studying and surveying these lands and parks. I mean, we are not against that work. We just hate this immature ideology, which is also degrowth ideology and, anti-technology. So that's the hill we're dying on. We don't believe in conservation for the sake of it.
Okay, maybe getting more in the meat of it. I mean, the concept of, like, ecological carrying capacity. Obviously, humans use tools and technology to basically, maximize it. But at a certain point, if you're actually, it's like eating the seed corn or whatever, you're going to degrade the capacity
How do you know?
of.
Do you have evidence for that?
Well, I'm saying, the whole thing is
Thank
with
you so
humans.
much,
Can we be
African
smarter than
communists.
just a herd of antelope?
Thank you so much, African communists. Appreciate you, man.
Favorable environmental conditions, the population grows, and then there's a crash because it can't sustain it. So I mean, I'm just saying, from my perspective, it's
Can you
it's
list
betting
examples of
big.
that? Can you list examples of that across history? Because surely this has happened before, if it can happen.
Well, I mean, after the Roman Empire fell, it was many centuries until the
First of all, you're
agricultural.
extremely loud. Can you dial it back a little bit? You're extremely loud to the point where
I'm very sorry. I'll hold the phone a little bit further away from my face. Is that better?
it's actually not better. Anyway, The Roman Empire, can you please demonstrate how the depletion of resources had anything to do with the decline of the Roman Empire or the economic activity within the Roman Empire?
No, I'm saying during the time of the Roman Empire, when they could maintain their technology, when they were degrading the fertility of the soil in the Italian peninsula, it was still after their social model collapsed. Then the people left in Italy were in an impoverished situation.
Can you demonstrate the correlation to the depletion of the soil and the depletion of resources?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
The Roman Empire and the Roman Republic encompassed the Italian peninsula for many centuries. And you're saying there was a point at which they ran out of resources or they ran out of soil having a fertile quality. Can you prove that? I've never heard of that, ever.
I don't have any sources off the top of my head right now, but I'm saying it's over time. Their technology was able to sort of mask the damage they were doing, and then not brought on by it because other factors, the German tribes and what have you. The Roman Empire collapsed, and then it sort of laid bare what was how degraded the fertility of the soil was.
Explain how the Roman Empire collapsed, because I'm lost on that one.
Well, it's very. That's a bit further history that is what I'm most familiar with. I was trying to find an example.
Did the Roman Empire actually collapse?
Sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
Did the Roman Empire actually, in fact, collapse?
I don't know what. Yes, but I don't understand.
All right, when did it collapse?
Yeah, the dates aren't my thing, man.
What?
Dates aren't my thing.
Okay, well, clearly it's
I don't know,
not your thing.
700 AD or something?
What?
700, 1200 AD, something around there? Is that correct?
So the Roman Empire didn't just change the name; it just fully collapsed.
Well, I mean, the Byzantine Empire was sort of a continuation
What happened to the
in
Western
some sense.
Roman Empire?
Pardon?
What happened to the Western Roman Empire? Did it just collapse?
Well, I guess it was a bit of a modern scholarship. It was more sort of a coup where some of these German tribes that took over and collapse is maybe being a bit disputed in the modern scholarship.
You're saying this has something to do with the soil. Can you actually explain what this has to do with the soil?
I mean, I know it's well established in historical sources about the exodus of the population from Italy after the collapse of the Roman Empire. They can no longer support the populations that were existing there.
Where is this well established?
I don't know. You can do some googling. I didn't come with all my.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not gonna.
I think we're getting a little. But anyways, I'm glad to hear that it's the aesthetic of the mainstream environmental movement that you're put up with, and I agree they're a bunch of clowns that don't really actually understand ecology.
All right, we're done with it. All right, Jam, go ahead. Hopefully, it's actually about MAGA communism this time.
Yeah. Hey, man, how's it going? Do I say is your name Hayes or Haas? I'm just wondering what to call you. Haas. Hey, Haas. Yeah, man, I don't know if I'm going to be much of a debater because I think I pretty much agree. I think that they are compatible. I think, communism to me is a deep ideology that is, compatible with all humanity.
Why are you here if you agree?
Well, you didn't really say. I just wanted to. I have some questions about it. My question is, how are we going to convey this message to the MAGA community that it makes sense, that it resonates with them? I think.
Well, you can watch my video and you can hear some of the ways I do that on my YouTube.
Okay.
This is not an advice space, okay? This is not an advice space. I'm here for debates. So, Che Guevara. Go ahead, Che Guevara. Go ahead.
Bro, what an idiot. Get the fuck out of here. Okay, who's this other guy? Lazo. Speak. What do you want?
Yeah. I just have some questions and I want to learn about it. So, how does nationalizing industries and small business work together? And if you dismantle the big monopolies, wouldn't they just emerge again? Aren't you keeping the premises alive?
If they emerged again, then the same thing would just restart. Because if anything gets so big that it has to become a monopoly, it has extended beyond the any kind of private sphere at all, and it's just become a public commons. That's my view. If something has gotten so big that it has to become a monopoly, there's no need that it should operate. Profit should not be the basis upon which it operates, or it's now is public interest, belongs to the public interest. That's what I believe.
But the small businesses would lead back to the monopolies, wouldn't they? That's how capitalism works, isn't it?
That's not just how capitalism works. That's probably how physics works as well. Something small becomes bigger. What's the problem, though? Because if it ever got that big, then the same cycle would repeat itself, except this time it wouldn't have to be like a violent political revolution. It would just be a cycle of socialism. Socialism also has a history. It also has cycles and stages. You saw this under Stalin. You saw this under Mao. Mao launched the Cultural Revolution. You saw this with Deng. You're now seeing this with Xi Jinping. He's doing something similar. He's clamping down on monopolies. And he's promoting the middle stratum. So, this is not this isn't something it's not a utopia where you get to an endpoint. It's a continually, changing and unfolding history.
I understand that.
Where it becomes non-antagonistic, right? Small businesses may one day aspire to get so big that they can be immortalized as like part of the public commons. And it's almost like you got so big, now there's this golden statue to you because of the greatness of your work, of your entrepreneurship and your business skills. Someone like Henry Ford, in a way, lives on like that in America. Now, the legacy of Henry Ford isn't exactly nationalized, but in every other respect, it is. His legacy, as far as the United States is concerned, has been immortalized and become of public interest and a public commons. So I think something similar is there. People may one day aspire to get to the point of making that immortal contribution to the commonwealth of mankind. And I think if you ask any of these billionaires that exist today, that's actually the talking points they already use. That's what Elon Musk says. That's what they already say. And maybe they're not sincere about it now, but that's how they talk in China as well. You ultimately want to get to a point where you work for humanity. And yeah, you start out as a small business, so you have the opportunity to do that instead of being strangled by bureaucracies. Let's have Che Guevara, who's thumbs downing me, speak.
One question before you do that.
Yeah.
I don't see how you abolishing the monopolies would lead to a state of affairs where people's material interests would be serving humanity. That sounds idealist to me. It doesn't sound materialist. What would MAGA communism change to...
Hold on. Okay, I have a question for you. Was Marx an idealist?
From what I don't know.
Well, Xi Jinping has repeatedly used the phrase, work for humanity. And do you know who he was quoting? Like, exactly?
Marx?
Yeah, Karl Marx, the founder of historical materialism. So saying that this is idealist is completely incompatible with Marxism itself. It's not idealist.
Okay, I just want to know how it's not idealist. I just want to know how
because working for humanity is... If you read the guidebook of communist builders in the Soviet Union, then... Shut the fuck up and wait your turn! If you read the guidebook for communist builders in the Soviet Union, if you read the communist rhetoric in China or any communist country, that is very much in line with how they articulate what it means to be a communist.
How will this idea affect the way equity investing currently works?
What will happen
to the investors once an entity
something in the material reality had to change for that to work?
Thank you so much, PJ.
Believing in working for humanity.
All right.
And doing...
Wait. What did you say has to change for that to work?
So when in the USSR, China, when they start talking about working for humanity, it's a different state. It's a a state
Okay.
controlled for the working class by the working class.
So do you not imagine that what state do you think I'm talking about?
MAGA communism in the United States, right?
Does that imply a different state?
Yeah, to me it does.
Okay, sure. So what's the problem?
I just don't see how in current, I want to see how MAGA communism, what the plan is to make people, quote unquote, work for humanity. How do you instill that spirit in, I don't know, American people, I guess?
You mean after the seizure of power in a proletarian dictatorship?
I mean, yeah, if that's part of the MAGA communist movement, then yeah.
I'll explain to you how society already works under capitalism, this form of capitalism today. So when you're working within your, on your grind to elevate yourself, you do get to a point where it's no longer about yourself anymore, and you have a degree of social obligations and responsibility because of the sheer scale of, how much your business encompasses. That's already a fact of today's form of capitalism. And if you get big enough, this kind of rhetoric of, serving humanity and the environment, I mean, that is already, formally speaking, the case. It's a fake version, it's a fraudulent version because of the rule of Wall Street and financial capital.
All the environmentalism in the US today is this fake shit, right? How do you make it not fake, I guess? That's the question to dumb it down.
Well,
how do you ensure that it's not fake?
You don't have the rule of an oligarchy or of financial capital. You have a state that is not loyal to any of the private interests of society, but is only loyal to the common interests, and in particular, the particular interests of the proletariat.
So something like
China. Can I speak? Can I speak?
You can speak when it's your turn.
Okay.
Something like China, right? That's the goal?
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah, I'll just listen and see if I have more questions.
All right, Jay, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, I want to give my views about monopolies. See, there is nothing problem in monopoly, biopoly, oligarchy, but the thing is, they should be good. They should work for humanity. Like there is a shipping agency in US. Its name is UPS. Its workers are dying cause of summer. Its trucks don't have air conditioners, so the workers are dying. That's wrong. Even if the UPS managed to become a monopoly, then what's the use of this? Its workers are dying. Are you understanding me? So the condition of workers should be good.
Can you please clarify what you mean? Workers are dying. What does this have to do with being against monopolies? You have Che Guevara in your profile picture. This is Marxism-Leninism 101. So please clarify what you're talking about.
I mean, if there is a monopoly in a market, like even in socialism, you have a government company, even if it's a monopoly. See, so it's not about monopoly or biopoly. The thing is, they should work for humanity.
If it's you're wrong. If in socialism, if you have a monopoly, then it's probably, if you have a government state-owned monopoly, then in no way, unless it's somehow hampering. My shit just fucking crashed. I can't fucking believe this. And YouTube kind of fucking crashed. What is going on? It's like, I am being sabotaged, objectively. Holy fuck. What the fuck is going on? What is going on? Holy fuck. Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah,
speak.
I disconnected. It just crashed. Yeah, anyway, as I was saying, no, you're wrong. A monopoly, if you're talking about a state-owned monopoly, then it's probably just some common interest, some common utility. Like, for example, should there be a monopoly on energy? Probably, yeah. I mean, I can't see how you can...
No.
These are in shut up.
Only government can control.
In basic economics, these are called natural monopolies. But the problem is that most monopolies are not natural monopolies and actually retard the forces of production. So if you have government retarding the forces of production, like you did have in the Soviet Union, I mean, that is objectively what happened. The Soviet Union was never able, put it this way, I mean, Soviet Union couldn't even adopt computer technologies because of a monopoly that was managed by this class of bureaucrats that didn't want to give up their power. So you need to treat government ownership as more of a burden rather than something to aspire for. Government should own the things that cannot be turned into a market. I agree. Probably the post system is probably an example of that. But you also have to deal with the issue of why can't government actually do a good job of I mean, you look at the US federal government right now. It has it is so far behind the private sector, it's a joke. In terms of technology, in terms of methods, in terms of competency and organization. So and there's something similar was happening in the Soviet Union. Soviet Union was not able to innovate very well. So that's a very real problem.
I think that's a problem that how will you reward innovation in communism? How will you reward innovation in communism? That's a very big issue.
Yeah, but the way you do it is that you give people room to experiment. You give people room to do their own thing, which means it's an inherently an anti-institutional and anti-monopolistic stance, at least compared to our society, which is fully consolidated by a government-backed monopoly capital. If we could have the government take over most of these monopolies or disband them or dissolve them, then this will give more breathing room for experimentation and give them back to the people. It'll give the people a chance to enrich themselves and to enrich society by innovating and revolutionizing the forces of production. I mean, how many technologies are being repressed by the, major oil monopolies when it comes to alternative sources of energy? Probably a lot. Big Pharma does the same thing. There's so much pharmaceutical and medical technology that's hampered or it's not investigated, selectively studied, all in the name of preserving their monopoly. You have something similar going on with computer technologies and software technologies. Look at intellectual property, right? So one of the big points of communism is destroying monopolies, destroying patents and IPs and all this nonsense, and giving the forces of production and the means of production back to the people.
Okay, I have a doubt that recently I have heard that in the United States of America, some scientists which are publicly funded, which are government funded, they have done a revolutionary research regarding nuclear fission and fusion. So what reward they will get? What reward they will get after doing so much intense research about nuclear fission and fusion? What rewards they will get?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not sure about the details of that study or how groundbreaking it really was, but I see your point. Your point is taken, yeah.
No, see, that's a proof that even a public funded university can do research, can do innovation. We just don't need privatization. Like in America, internet was publicly funded. No capitalist was ready to invent.
That's not necessarily true because I know America's public funded network and system is responsible for most of the actual innovation. I agree with that. Most of the actual hard hitting research capital comes from the government. It's from the public sector. I agree, most of the research. But as far as implementation is concerned, that has been done by the private sector. And I think there's a reason for that. Because implementation is very sensitive to local effects and local interactions and things like that a government can't necessarily plan for because it just doesn't have the information to. So the era of information technology does not lend itself to total centralization. The only person who's tried to make the case for this is Paul Cockshott with his supercomputer idea that, everything will be centrally planned by supercomputers. I'm not really convinced by it though. But I've not seen anyone make a better case for it than him. But saying that the public sector, you have to, if you're going to take accountability for publicly funded research, you also have to take accountability for all the bad things the things the government's horrible at doing. And that's also being able to implement these technologies and organize them in a way that's sensitive to people's actual wants.
So doing that for implementing the technology, privatization is good. Are you saying that? The government can't implement properly. I think government can also do that.
Privatization is not necessarily good, and it's not necessarily bad. I have the same view as China. Usually, it's not necessarily about privatization. It's more about giving people the breathing room to develop. It's basically cutting the regulations and bureaucracy that hampers people's ability to actually make new things. You don't necessarily have to privatize things that exist or make them nationalize them even. You just have to give people the opportunity to engage in economic activity that's not planned for beforehand.
Okay, so let's discuss another point that why the hell people will work in socialism. What will be the motivation for that to work?
The same reason people, I mean, what do you mean? Work is life's prime want. Work is the reason, it's the purpose of humanity. It's like, you don't have human beings without people who work. You actually do have to do a great deal.
How you will get people to work? How you will get people to work? That's the question.
You give people a reason to work by giving them the ability to work for themselves.
Yes. See, I want to say that first of all, we should admit that people are not lazy. Like, see, if you have a neighbor
People are
and
lazy. I think when you have a overly bureaucratized socialism, people will just be lazy. I actually fully think that. People, I mean, it was the case in the USSR in the later years. It's true. No one can deny that. Nobody who lived in the USSR can deny the fact that in the late years of the USSR, the 70s and 80s, people were lazy. It was stagnating. People just kind of didn't have a reason to do the extra.
Yes, they were little lazy. Like even in Russia, even now in Russia, if your wife is pregnant, she will get 3 years holiday, 3 years paid holiday.
Yeah,
so why the people will not get lazy?
But people are definitely lazy when not put under pressure. Diamonds are made under pressure. When people are not under pressure, they are lazy. I know that because I'm lazy when I'm not put under pressure.
Okay, see my views on it. I am saying that if you have neighbor and you think that he's lazy, he's not lazy. He's just doing some work which he doesn't like. Like, see, if I like running, and you will say start dumping, I will always feel lazy.
There will always be work that has to be done that has nothing to do with whether you like it or not. They need to dig coal out of the ground, or they need to dig resources out of the ground. This is not shut the fuck up, Indy. For you wait your turn. This is not particularly glamorous work. It's not particularly appetizing work to have to, be a garbage man and take people's garbage, clean toilets. None of that is appetizing work. It's not particularly, it's not work people necessarily want to do. It's work people have to do to survive. So submitting to necessity is always going to be a necessity.
Yeah, you are right. And there's a YouTube channel called Second Thought. He was saying that along with socialism, we should also do some revolutions in autonomy. Like we should build robots for work.
Yeah,
people will just enjoy their life.
The problem is that Second Thought is a revisionist, and he works for the U.S. Democratic Party.
Waste.
So
really,
thank you so much, PJ.
Yes, I also think so.
No, Second Thought works for the U.S. Democratic Party. He's aligned with the Azov Battalion in Ukraine. He's against Russia, and he's a liberal. So whatever Second Thought is saying has to be taken with a grain of salt, because he's actually a revisionist and possibly a Hitlerite. He's an Adolf Hitler socialist.
Maybe.
He is definitely an Adolf Hitler socialist.
So I think now we should not discuss about absolute socialism. We should just about improving our conditions from capitalism.
Yeah,
like, see, if you implement.
But the problem is that Second Thought is an Adolf Hitler socialist who wants to bring back Hitler's Germany 2.0.
Oh, really? Yeah, maybe I also think that he was very liberal. He's very liberal.
He's a liberal. He's not a socialist. He's not a communist. He's just a liberal.
Okay, just answer. Can someone be a communist without being a liberal?
Yes,
What's the
absolutely. I'm
difference
one
between
of
that?
them. I fully reject liberalism, and I endorse a Taliban version of communism.
What's the difference between that?
Liberalism basically promotes drugs. It promotes OnlyFans. It promotes prostitution. It
Hyper
promotes
individualism. Hyper
what?
individualism.
Yeah, it does
Liberalism.
that. It also promotes grooming children. It promotes the LGBT movement. It promotes, the Democratic Party and and it promotes the establishment. It promotes voting for Democrats. It promotes, going to war overseas. It promotes everything that the mainstream media says, pretty much, almost
Yeah,
to a
yeah, yeah.
qualified. It also
And you know what?
promotes political correctness.
In this pandemic era, we have gone through too much conspiracy theories like Illuminati, Lucifer. I think they are just spread by capitalists to
No,
divert us
no,
from
the
our goal.
capitalists are the Illuminati, and they are loyal to Lucifer.
No, they may be Illuminati, but it is not a devil. They are devil worshipper. Devil has a
Yes,
powers.
they do worship the devil.
It
What do you think
doesn't look like
Balenciaga
that.
does? Balenciaga, they're
What
devil
are,
worshippers. They do worship the devil.
what's your views on depopulation agenda?
That's also part
I
of
have
their
been
agenda.
hearing
They
lot
want to
about
they
that.
want to they want to reduce the population.
But why they want to do so? What's the goal?
The goal is to preserve their monopolies. The more there's humanity, the more humanity there is. The less man. Rev, change the title back to the original one. This is. I don't know why you fucking shit.
Okay, let me give my views on this. There's a data which shows that from 1988 to 2017, 1980 to 2017, top 1% has polluted the planet more than top 50% poor people. Top 1% people have spread more pollution than the top 50% poor people. So
All
this
right.
may be cause that I don't want to change my lifestyle for climate change. And if you want to reduce the effect of climate change, then just kill the people. We will not compromise for our lives. Just kill the people, reduce the population. Climate change will be in the balance. Then we will continue enjoying our lives.
Yeah, it's
This will
and climate change is we can't really tell the truth about it, but I would investigate because many lies were spread by the media and the mainstream media and the elites about climate change in order to enforce the Great Reset agenda by Carl Schwab and the World Economic
yes.
Forum.
Yes. But first of all, we have to realize that the climate change, maybe not that much, but climate change is a reality. I have been observing that. Like we have heat waves. I am a farmer from India, and our yield has dropped at 15 to 20% due
Yeah,
to heat wave.
it could be man-made, it could
Reality.
be natural, who knows? But it doesn't mean it's that the answer to it is that we have to reduce the things that actually feed people and make humanity wealthy.
Yes, yes. And WEF is promoting like eat bugs, eat insects. What the hell is this here? I'm not going to eat any insects. We have
Yeah,
enough food.
I agree. I agree. They are. Yeah, we should humanity should fight through any changes instead of having to kill itself to sacrifice itself for the elites. The elites see humanity as a burden, but what humanity needs to do is flourish like never before.
And they are spreading lies like that humanity is a parasite on the nature. We are not parasite on the nature. We are the part of the nature, like
Yeah,
other
I
species.
agree. I agree.
Like I have been to Thailand. I have been to Thailand, and there in one house I have seen cricket flower. They have crushed the cricket to make his flower.
I agree. All right, thank you so much, sir. And it was a great talk. We were gonna have some other of the contested people step up to debate. Indie television. What is
Okay,
your
okay.
you heard my affirmative thesis? If you're not familiar with it, that there is no meaningful sense in which someone in the United States can be a communist without also being a MAGA communist. So that's my argument. What is your counter argument?
I disagree with that totally.
Okay.
I believe that communism is incompatible totally with MAGA as a movement.
Okay, why is it?
Because MAGA was designed. It was for small government, protecting our borders and capitalism. It was not for communism. It's not. It has nothing to do with
All right.
communism.
Well, if it's for capitalism, why is the MAGA movement so against the big woke corporations? Why shouldn't they just submit to woke corporations then? Wall
Well,
Street?
no, that they're trying to They're trying to. That is basically, in my opinion, the government and the corporations are working hand in hand,
I agree.
and
I agree with that.
and yeah, they've taken over. You got the Twitter, you got the
Yeah.
FBI.
So what
It's
do you
been
mean by
staffed by.
capitalism then? Because to me, that's what capitalism is.
No, that's not what capitalism is. That's a mixture of socialism
Well,
masquerading as
it's
capitalism.
socialism for the capitalists. It's not socialism for us. We don't benefit from it. They do. They get everything.
No. I mean, are you familiar with somebody like Peter Schiff, where he talks about how it's really a lot of socialist policies, and they masquerade them as capitalism, but they're
No, yeah,
not.
it is, but it's socialist policies for the capitalists, Wall Street bankers, and elites. It's not for our benefit. It's not like they're building canals and dams and new cities for us. They're not building socialist mega projects like they did under Stalin or in China. They're doing it only to use it as a form of corruption, protect monopolies, and create red tape so that the actual common people can never prosper.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, but that to me is here's the thing, right? It's like fruit of a poison tree. Once you start inserting a little bit of socialism into what's traditionally a capitalist institution, the capitalism then it's like adding that to the capitalism. So then that begins to take it.
Yeah, but you
If you're
realize capitalism created a ruling class, and the ruling class, in order to preserve its power, started to use a lot of socialist policies to stay on top. You know that, right?
No, I don't know that.
So how do
I
you think
believe
this
that
whole
was.
thing came to be?
I believe it's just greed. It's a lot of just greed, and
Sure,
it's
but
just
don't you
people
think
being people.
don't you how do you so did we start out as socialism or did we start out as capitalism?
We started out as capitalists. Let's use the GI
So
Bill for
how
example.
did capitalism become socialism then?
I'm gonna give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
The GI Bill. The GI Bill, right? It was developed to help soldiers go to school. Right? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, the government that is socialism. You insert that into what used to be a cheap college used to be very cheap. Once they inserted that, capitalism took over. They realized they could get a handout from the government, so they upped the tuition. They upped the price, which is but that's not true. If there was no interference from the government, that wouldn't have happened.
Wait, do you know what year the GI Bill was passed?
I'm not. I have a GI Bill. It's something like I don't remember. I don't know exactly.
Because I'm pretty sure the GI Bill that was in 44, okay? So college was cheap in the 70s. College was cheap in the 60s. The GI Bill, that was World War II. That was in 1944. And it expired in 56. So the
You-
cheap, nice college people used to enjoy, that was
To
because
the
of the
color,
GI Bill.
free market capitalism
no,
is
you
not
used to be able to
currently
go
in
to
the menu.
college.
As
You used to be able to go to
capitalists, we need
college
to
and
work
work
with
a
Yeah,
job
anyone
as
who
a
yeah,
will fight
waiter.
the
but
corporatists.
we're talking even as early as the 70s, people used to be able to go to college. The problem is actually the opposite. What happened is that the colleges started to become mega corporations and it became an industry. And then you had another problem is that all the jobs went overseas. So instead of having well-paying jobs, too many people started going to college and too many people started trying to become professional, and that, put a strain on the college industry. And now we have record tuition prices.
Yeah, but there's also the government debt. What
Oh
I'm
yeah, I
saying is
agree. There's
these
the
are
debt aspect too, but that comes from the Federal Reserve banking system. That comes from the private banking system in the city of London. That comes from the banking system. That's all from capitalism.
here's what I'm saying. I understand what you're saying. I agree with you. But what I'm saying is the government right now, the United States system right now, is not true capitalism. It's a hybrid, and it's not
I
indicative
mean,
of
I agree with you, but I'm just trying to say there's a reason we went from A to B. Now, the only way if you're talking about a freer market, I agree we should have a freer market and less red tape, but you need to have a strong, not necessarily big, but a strong, firm government that will be able to hold that together, to have the room to have that. Because if you don't have a strong, incorruptible government, then it's just going to be taken over by the richest person. We're going to be back to square one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying.
I
Yeah,
mean,
there
we
there
don't we
needs to
don't
be.
want the government to take over everything. We just want a simpler government with less regulations and less red tape, and we just want them to take over things like the oil industry and things that you can't have a market for. You can't really have a market for these giant public utilities and energy and all this stuff. But we just want the government to be much more dynamic too and flexible, and then we want it to promote markets. Just China has more of a free market than we do, if you don't know that. I mean, it's easier in China to just start out as a vendor selling stuff on the street. There's no regulations. They don't have the red tape we have here. You can just start out. And that's what we want here too. But we also want to ensure that we have a system that serves the people, because we're going to have a little socialism either. It's going to be socialism either way. The old days of capitalism where it's all every man for himself, that's not going to happen no more. We don't live in that world. So what we need to do is we need to have a communism for the people instead of for the corrupt elites.
I understand, but I don't believe in communism. And I don't believe it's compatible with the core movement of MAGA. I'm a double Trump voter.
I think so, because MAGA wants to bring the jobs back, doesn't it?
Yeah, MAGA wants to bring the jobs back.
Well, if you want to bring the jobs back, you're gonna have to understand that's something you can only do when you take into consideration the common interest and the commonwealth, right? If you're just leaving it to profit, it's not going to work. Why? Because first of all, money's fake from the Federal Reserve. They just print it out. It's not backed by anything. It's just fake.
I agree with you. I agree
Yeah.
with you there.
And then second of all, you can't even make it in this. You will get a glass ceiling if you ever get it so far. And then these hedge funds and Wall Street will approach you and they'll say, hey, you want to go farther? You have to submit to us and do what we say. And if you don't, they'll bankrupt you. So entrepreneurs can't even get to the top without joining the establishment, which usually, honestly, just gobbles up whatever they have and destroys it. So if you want to bring the jobs back, we need a government policy. We need an industrial policy that is specifically planned for this goal. It needs to be a plan, an economic plan, right? You can't just leave it to itself, because it's not going to happen then, right? But
So
here's
you
the
don't.
thing: as Americans, every real American wants to have the most amount of freedom possible. I agree with that. We don't want to plan everything, but we need to have an overarching economic plan. We know what we're doing. And then coupled with that plan, maximal freedom and liberty economically for people to improvise and innovate, and that great Wild West mentality we have. We want to promote that. But in order to here's the thing. In order for the individual to thrive, you need a strong community. And you need a strong country. And if you don't have that, the individual will not be able to thrive. Because you'll just have corporations, or you'll have other gangs or warlords. You'll have other people take over. Individuals will not have the space to, do their own thing.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. Communism. It's a loaded term. It's been used before. By people that were frankly anti-American. They did not they were not compatible with American ideals. China is not compatible with American ideals, and neither was the USSR. Venezuela. Everybody who's
Well,
tried communism.
look, Russia had a communism for Russia. China's got a communism for China, and they're all different from
So
each
you
other, right?
so you're saying you're going to start an American version of
Yeah,
communism.
it'll be an American version. And if you look at the history of American communists, we're not told about this history, right? Because the media uh, lies to us, and that the history books that we're told in public schools, they're all only approved by the very same big government. You had the FBI with the Red Scare and all that stuff. The truth is, communists in history, in American history, were carrying the legacy of 1776 and the founding fathers. And all communists throughout history were pro-American Revolution. They praised the history of America. They admired America, what America was, and they were trying to defend our civil liberties. And take World War One. You want to talk about when the Federal Reserve really started taking over? It's right before World War One, a few years before World War One. World War One happens, and Americans don't want to go to Europe to fight a damn war. What does that have to do with us, right? The bankers here tried to do as much propaganda as possible to get us into that war, to go fight the bankers' wars in Europe. And some of the only people who stood up were communists, like Eugene Debs. That man ran for president in prison, and he still got 1 million votes. And he was put in prison just for speaking out against American troops having to go die in a foreign war for a foreign interest, and for a ruling class that doesn't care about what America stands for, right? To me, that's a real patriot. A real patriot to me is not someone like George W. Bush, who wants to go to Iraq and wants to go all over the world and for Israel and to be the world police. A real American patriot is somebody like Eugene Debs, who stands up to the government and defends our liberties. I think that's what the founding fathers would have wanted.
Well, here's the thing, right? We could always criticize, George Bush, but at the time, I believe, given the facts he was given at the moment, maybe not Iraq, but definitely Afghanistan. But here's what I'm saying: like, you talk about revisionist history, but then you're like, you're bringing up, your communist version of history. Who's to say what's the objective version of history is? What actually happened?
I
If
mean,
we're gonna
I
go there.
recommend everybody do their own research. That's what I recommend always.
Yeah, I did my own research. I mean, I appreciate your viewpoint. I do, but I don't believe. I don't believe it's because of what communism stands for. It's not what people who voted for Trump were thinking about when they were voting for Trump.
I
It's
mean,
kind
I
of, to
will
me, a
grant you,
hijack.
I don't think people in this country in general are educated about communism. We're not educated about it, and there's a reason for that, is because the same globalists who the MAGA people were fighting against, you can admit that, right? They were fighting against the globalists. Well, it was the
Yeah, of course.
globalists who were the ones that started the Cold War and started the crusade against communism. And, the USSR and America were friends during World War II. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Stalin were friends. They were good friends. They liked each other. And then what happened is that Roosevelt dies, and the British and the CIA and the globalists, they put Truman in charge. And all of a sudden, we hate Russia now. We hate communists and stuff. So a lot of our history that I agree, Americans don't really, when they think of communism, most people are thinking of big government, and they're thinking of a scary, totalitarianism. But you got to admit, how do you know it's not propaganda? How do you know that's not what it actually is, Because we are fed so many lies about everything. You see how they lie about everything. So what's to say they're not lying about communism too?
So you're saying in communism, right? You're saying American communism it wouldn't basically be what the WEF is peddling. Like you will own nothing and be happy.
No,
as far as I'm concerned,
Americans will own much more than ever before. Own farms, own homes. I mean, look at China. It's not going to be China. So I'm not saying this to say, oh, we're going to be like China. I'm just saying China has a 90% ownership rate compared to our like 35%. We don't want people to have to rent. We don't want people to have to live in homes owned by the government. We want people to own their own shit. We just don't want the banks to own it, right? So you get what I'm saying? It's not about the government owning it. It's about the people owning it instead of the banks, because the banks own everything right now. Look at truckers. A lot of truckers own their own trucks, but they're in debt because the banks own it, and they got to pay the banks, right? They got to pay the interest.
I understand. Yeah, you got to pay your not mortgage, your truck note. Yeah,
it's like the banks own everything. It's trucks, it's homes, it's businesses. They own everything. They got everybody by the balls. We have so much debt in this country, and the reason they justify that debt is they say, oh, well, if we forgive the debt, oh, that's going to be communism. And so they want to scare the hell out of people about what communism is, because the banks want to keep people in debt. We're not trying to, we just want people to own it instead of, here's what I'm trying to say. We want people to own things. We don't want things to own people. We don't want money to own people. We don't want debt to own people. We want people to own it. And if people own it, that means they're using it for a reason, right? We're not against people owning things to use things as they please and to do things as they please. We're just against people being exploited, and we're against banks owning everything.
Okay, I understand. But here's the thing about our current system. I've watched several guys start trucking businesses, and you do not have to take that route. It's not like you have to be subordinate to the bank. You could start a business with the cash in your pocket. It'll just take you longer, but you can still get there.
Well,
it's
but
possible.
How many people can get there, right? That's the problem.
I've gotten there. I got there. I started a business with $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there. I got to making decent money, and I didn't take on any debt.
Yeah, but
it's possible.
I think it is possible. It's possible to do that with a home as well. It's possible to do that with a lot of other things. The problem is that it's not viable for most people. Most people, they're not going to be able to do that, right? And also, credit is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that these banks are predatory, which means they prey on people, and they don't actually have a plan for people to ever pay the debt back. They just do it because they want to capitalize on the debt. And that's what our system is built around, and that's the problem. Credit is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I would give you an example of this. If you end up being a promising, popular business, if someone wants to invest in that and say, hey, here's a investment, or here's a debt for you to go and expand, that's not a bad thing. The problem is when you start capitalizing on the interest. That's usury, right? That's the problem.
Yeah, usury.
Yeah, when they start capitalizing on the interest. Because at that point, you're making money just out of money, not out of hard work, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's really the problem, is that a lot of people want to be able to prove themselves. And another thing, too, is that the reason a lot of people take on the trucking job is they want the economic liberty and independence that comes with that, right? And
you're right.
American citizens who are living in a country whose forefathers fought for our liberty and fought for our freedom, we don't want to be slaves working at fucking McDonald's for a boss and having no freedom in our lives. And we don't want that. Americans don't want that. Why the government does so much for these corporations? They do so much for the banks. They do so much. Why don't they do something for the people, where they're not giving us a handout, but they just give us the chance to start on our own 2 feet and build something with our own 2 hands, right? Why would that be so hard? Why can't they build better infrastructure? Why can't they build a better market, right? Build a better context for the market, right? They should build cities, for example. When's the last time we had a city built? Never, right? You look at Los Angeles and New York, it's a hellhole. Imagine if we built a new city. How many new businesses could start? How many new people could make a livelihood off of that, right? Imagine if we built infrastructure, revamped our transportation system. I mean, there's so much we can do that could create opportunities for the individual. But instead of doing that, instead of creating opportunities for the individual, the government works its ass off making sure monopolies are happy, squeezing out whatever dime they can off of the Federal Reserve printed money that's fake in the first place. So
Yeah.
but that's what communism is, because what communism means is that it's not profits in command. It's the common people in command. The common people are ruling the country. So, and in MAGA, you have to admit this too. MAGA may not be communist. At least it doesn't know that it's communist. But MAGA is a movement of common people. It's a common people's interest, right? MAGA says, we're here, we're the common people. And it's not bought out by the corporations. It's not bought out by the ruling elites. It's common people trying to come together and fight for their common interests, right? Against the Great Reset, against Carl Schwab, Soros, and Bill Gates and his depopulation agenda. That, to me, that's what communism means. It's just, that's what it always meant. We were just lied about it too, Let me tell you something. Russia and China they had some ugly things happen in their history, right? But you got to understand, they started out in a different place, and they're completely different countries. They started out with brutal monarchies, and they were colonized like China was. They had a warlord era. I mean, it was tough there, right? They also had to industrialize from scratch without taking any British loans and without having any access to the technologies from the West. So, of course, they had a rocky head start. But at the end, of it, the Russians managed to build something out of nothing, right? So Churchill said, Stalin, he came to the Russia where they had wooden wagons, and he left Russia with nuclear weapons. Mao, same thing, right? China was the most backward shithole you can imagine. By the time Mao left, they had a national industrial system. They were producing some of the most iron and steel in the world. They had a type of economy that could feed people, have medicine, educate people, just the bare bones and the basics. Now, Americans, we're starting out from a different place. We don't have to do all of that. We don't have to go from being, in the backwoods to an industrial country. That's an ugly process. It always has been everywhere, right? I mean, here in America, we had the Wild West. We had the Indians. We had all this crazy shit happen to become civilized like how we are now, right? That's in the past. We're not going back to that. So we're already a wealthy, prosperous country. Why don't we have a government that works for the people? That's what I'm saying.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
The COVID protocols, you had to take a shot. You wouldn't describe that as communism. You wouldn't describe that as like
I would not. No, I would describe
authoritative
that as the dictatorship of big pharma. That's big pharma. So big pharma, they're doing it. Ultimately, it goes back to the banks, but big pharma. Well, I don't. I'm on YouTube right now, so I really can't talk that.
Okay, all right. Yeah. We'll go to a different subject.
No. I'll hint at it though, because I'll just.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll hint at it. But basically, speaking of big pharma, they have technologies, special ones, that were not allowed in China. And that's why China was doing the lockdowns, because they were not accepting those technologies from American big pharma, because the Chinese didn't trust those technologies, right? So it's awfully suspicious, because, and we're looking at new reports. I'm sure you're familiar with everything that's going on with that. We can't really get into the details, but I'm sure you're familiar with what's going on when it comes to the after effects and how a lot of people had lied about it and the CDC and stuff, but we can't really get into it. But no, I don't think that's communism, because if it was communism, it would be based on the people's interests, right? And I'll give you an example of that. So China had these lockdowns. I'm sure you're familiar with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So China had those lockdowns in place, really harsh ones. And then people started saying in China, hey, this is bullshit. We don't want this, right? So what did the Chinese government do? They said, all right, That's what the people want. We're going to go with what the people want. And they opened up. And now the Western media is saying China is so bad. Everyone's dying of COVID in China because they're opening up. But China, the reason China opened up is they're not going to force something against the Chinese people's will. They don't want, right? Whereas you look at what happened here, something was forced against us to serve, the big capitalists, or you can call them the big socialist capitalists, if you want to call them that. It's
I believe I believe it's really socialism masquerading as capitalism. I don't believe that the way that the state is set up right now, it's actually even really capitalism. I believe they're really socialists. They're really down with a globalist agenda. And to me, they're
you gotta
almost
understand that has its origins in something called the City of London. Now, the City of London is a network of private banks that
I'm familiar with it. It's like
they
a
started
smaller
out
city.
on a for-profit basis. So that's why we call it capitalism. Now, I agree with you. We don't have a capitalist market, a free market. And also, things for us are not able to be on a for-profit basis, right? But at the root cause of it, you are looking at profit is still driving this network of banks, central banks in the City of London, the Federal Reserve. It's a form of profit that's no longer based on hard work, but it's still a form of profit that they're making. See, the government works for their profit instead of our interests. Because if they work for our interests, they would build real things and they would promote real hard work, instead of just promoting and printing money. They're printing money because there's a select few people that are profiting off of this. So our society is actually based on profit right now, right? So
some way, I believe it's more based on power than profit.
It's both. It's both. Their power is in the form of the profit, right? So our society is based on the profit of an elite few, even though we do have a socialistic system, but that socialistic system only serves the profits of the elite few.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. All right,
Yeah.
but here's from my viewpoint as a MAGA voter. I believe we're already pretty much. You're saying you want to start a MAGA communism, and I believe MAGA was basically against communism, this global form of communism that already exists. That MAGA or whatever
Well,
socialism,
I'll
whatever
tell
you
you
want to
why
call it.
I think MAGA should adopt communism, because this is why. At the end of the day, what communism's actually about is it's about the working class. Now, we're against globalism. We're against the globalists and their globalist socialism, right? But at the end of the day, MAGA is about the working class. And because MAGA is about the working class, and because communism is about the working class, we're saying MAGA is being hijacked right now. Ron DeSantis is, coming from left field. Trump doesn't have his own. I mean, Trump just endorsed Kevin McCarthy again for speakership. And as far as the direction of MAGA is concerned, there's all sorts of predators that are coming to try and corrupt it. I mean, even Trump's presidency, a lot of special interests, had Trump by the balls, Israel, all that stuff. So if it's based in the working class, people who earn through hard work, if it's based in their interests, then it won't be based in the interests of the capitalist elite. It'll be based in the working people. So MAGA should be by, for, and of the interests of the working man. And to me, that is what communism is.
I disagree with you there because here's the thing, right? If you're a communist country, your ultimate goal is to go global. If you go global, you solve a lot of the issues that the former Soviet Union and all these other communist states ran into. You've got to go global. So to me, the powers that be, they've already at the very top level, they've already gone communist. And I believe the reason why Trump is getting so much flack is because he was not with the the communist agenda, the whatever we want to call it, whatever the globalist.
Well, that is true for Trotsky. So there was a guy named Leon Trotsky, right? So when Russia had a communist revolution, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. I'm familiar with
Yeah, my
Trotsky.
thing froze a little bit. Well, you just let me know when you can't hear me anymore.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. So Russia had a communist revolution, and they had a guy named Leon Trotsky. And fuck's sake, gotta rejoin. All right, my bad. The temporarily froze. It just disconnected me. So Russia, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
So Russia had a communist revolution, and there was a guy named Leon Trotsky. And what Trotsky said was that it's got to go global, right? It's got to be we got to take over. This whole thing's got to be the whole world. And he collaborated with the British intelligence because there was already a British Empire. The British Empire was global, right?
Yeah.
We fought to be free of the British Empire. So Trotsky was an agent of the British and all these other people. So that was Trotsky, but Trotsky was kicked out by Stalin because Stalin said, Trotsky, he's just serving the British. He's just serving the ruling class. He's not serving the working people of Russia. They don't want to have to go global. They want to focus on their own issues. So Stalin said it's socialism in one country, not global, right? And then that's the version of communism that was in China and most of the rest of the world. North Korea even. So that's the one I'm talking. But here's the thing about Trotsky. I agree with some of what you're saying because Trotsky's followers in America, a lot of them took power. Now, we went to the Iraq War because some of these people like Irving Kristol, they were Trotskyists, former Trotskyists, they claim, right? And they wanted to go around the world waging wars to create that, global system, which is really just the new British Empire. And but that's just serving the British Empire. That's not the communism we saw in history. That's just that's their version.
Yeah, and I believe that the ideological, the strains of the ideology, they've branched a lot, but they're all basically coming together. If you kind of get what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, Trotsky, he was killed by Stalin. He was Stalin.
Yeah, he was in Mexico.
Stalin killed that guy because he was a menace. He was a bad guy. So here's basically what I'm saying, right? I think the choice is either the globalist socialism or a communism in one country, like Stalin said. And that's what I think MAGA communism is. It's for one country. It's not for the whole world. It's for America, and it's for only America.
I understand what you're saying. I believe that that's basically impossible because we have a global supply chain. So you're gonna have to.
But we should have relationships with other countries based on agreements and deals instead of a British Empire, which is at the gunpoint. Because that's not the American way. Americans don't believe in that way. We want a firm handshake, and that's how we want to negotiate our relationship to other countries in the world.
Okay, well, we just have to agree to disagree, but it was nice talking to you. I appreciate it.
I guess nice talking.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna have Wonder World go next.
All right. So, what are the exact metaphysical implications for communism, MAGA? Because communism is materialist.
He can't hear you.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, so the metaphysical implications for communism are materialist in nature. MAGA is based off of a new myth for America. So how did those two coincide?
What is the new myth?
About America as an idea.
Can you be more
Like it just
specific?
seems like a LARP. Like it just seems like a LARP. Like it's very contrived. Like putting this communist element into MAGA. MAGA is not about the working class or this like very formalistic economic
All
system.
right. Okay, so do you think that Chinese communism was formalistic economics?
Well, China is not exactly orthodox like Marxism.
And so then it's a kind of a non-starter because you're basically beginning with the premise that communism has never been tried, quote unquote, and that there's no orthodox Marxism in history besides
Oh,
on
there
paper.
is. Paris Commune, I'd say.
Okay, so the no, you know what? Let's actually roll with that. According to you, the
All right,
Paris
yeah.
Commune was just a formalistic economic theory, and it didn't have all these phrases about freedom and French patriotism, which was very much there because of the
It was
Franco-Prussian War.
anarchistic.
Doesn't matter. It was very much a French spiritual atmosphere because of the Franco-Prussian War. It was harkening back to the days of the French Revolution. It was definitely based on a quote-unquote myth. So I have to explain to you something, that human beings are not robots. So if you think you're going to have a mass movement based on formalistic economic theories, I would probably just call that mental illness. Nowhere in the pages of anything Marx or Engels ever wrote was this caricature of materialism ever justified. You're calling it, what they actually did refer to what you're talking about as vulgar materialism, which they continually derided as nonsense, having nothing to do with anything they were saying. And materialism doesn't eliminate the human aspect of things. It doesn't eliminate art. It doesn't eliminate, spirituality. It doesn't eliminate the soul. It just recognizes factors that, in Engels' words, were never given any attention before, such as the need for human beings to actually feed themselves, put a roof over their head, and things like that. Before, they just said, oh, wait for heaven, this world is cursed, whatever. So materialism is not about formalism. Actually, formalism is idealist. The Soviet Union called formalism a form of idealism. This formalistic thinking did exist there. It's a bourgeois form of mechanical idealism.
Well, the whole point of Marx is how he flipped Hegel's dialectic on his head and got rid of the essential myth and spirit
Sure, I think
of
you're just
Hegel.
talking about like a bunch of platitudes that have actually nothing to do with Marx. You're talking about things you probably have heard
So
somewhere.
Marx was not a materialist, is what you're saying.
No, Marx
He didn't deny
Marx
God.
was a Marx.
Did he not deny God and the idea as having primacy, and instead viewed that the material world
Okay,
and the world of
a
human
synonym?
affairs
What is a
is
synonym?
primary?
What is a synonym for form in philosophy?
You tell me.
Okay, I'll start. Plato's theory of forms. What is used as a
the
synonym
idea.
for form?
The Platonic form is the idea.
Right, exactly. So you just said formalism is materialist, but it's actually idealist.
No, I meant formalistic in terms of this. In terms of
that
the
is
economic
idealism.
system.
That is idealism. At best, Marx might call it mechanical or vulgar materialism, but he doesn't recognize that as a true form of materialism. The only real form of materialism is dialectical. So when you're talking about stuff like myths, I think that's something that probably belongs to the realm of phenomenology or something, or or cultural theory. I don't know what do you mean by myth? What is this? What are you saying? Like, you don't realize that great changes in history. I mean, I think you're saying things are mythical. I think that's not true.
It's rooted in a mythos.
No,
it's not rooted in this purely mechanical materialist
that's exactly what I mean.
view of reality.
The burden of proof is upon you to establish this very mechanical, vulgar form of formalism as somehow a viable representation of reality before you start calling other things myths, because the things that you call myths, I would probably just call reality.
No, but when I say reality, I mean in terms of this like purely material reality.
That's not reality. That's not reality. Yeah. How is that in any way real? What, like, even in the realm of like science, if you want to call it that, that has no place in modern science. I mean, like, modern physics has completely eliminated the possibility for any kind of formalism as an accurate way of describing reality. So you
because
can't
the Marxist thought of reality is in that way.
Okay, can you please? Is there anything written by Marx or Engels to indicate that?
The Paris Commune.
Can you be? I'm pretty sure that was not a writing by Marx or Engels.
But he supported the Paris Commune.
What about the Paris Commune?
Inherently anarchistic.
What about the Paris Commune was devoid of what you would qualify as myth?
Antifa is basically a modern day version of what the Paris Commune was. It's devoid of any.
At this point, you're just trolling. I know at this point you're just trolling.
No, it's true, and also you just look at the atheism, the atheism of Marx. That's
nobody cares.
Like a pure example.
The Paris Commune was not. Marx did not. He discouraged the Paris workers from
one at
taking
a
arms.
time. One at a time. Okay. So
Yeah,
Wooler,
you took the L.
Yeah. So Wooler, here's what I'm gonna have to tell you. Okay. As far as the materialism of Marx is concerned, and his atheism is concerned, the truth is that, and if you don't have the ability to appreciate the philosophical rigor of where Marx was coming from, you can't make any simplistic judgments or assertions. Like, Marx meant something very specific by his rejection of, theology and his rejection of religion. And we never actually see evidence of Marx calling himself an atheist, but we do see Marx critiquing atheism. And I'm not necessarily saying that I think Marx was a religious person or affirmed his belief in the existence of God. I just think he left it open because he no longer considered the question of atheism to be of any essential significance.
Did Marx not polemicize Plato and all the philosophical history of the West, which is rooting the idea, and he criticized it on the basis that it wasn't materialist? I mean, he was a fan of Democritus, was he not?
You mean Epicurus?
Yeah.
Epicurus. I don't think this was something Marx did specifically, no. I think Marx was coming from the background of the young Hegelians. So the criticism of religion and the criticism of idealism accomplished by Feuerbach, it's old news. It was like Marx was not the one who started. Marx was coming from there. He was not the originator of this.
Yeah, but he was in that school of thought, which is my exact point.
But that's not what made his contributions unique. It was his criticism of that school of thought that gave rise to the philosophical foundation of Marxism.
Which is what exactly? And how is that relevant to today?
I would call the foundation from Marx to be a dialectical form of materialist humanism, where he basically said that man has a material being that encompasses the whole of his spiritual heights, right? The height of his spirituality is encompassed by the material being of man. It's not a reductionism, it's an acknowledgement of man as a real thing, something real, something living. And for Marx, the reality of ideas was a reality accounted for by the material being of man. Now, that material being of man is not itself some kind of substance. It's just, for Marx, ideas are actually real in the world. They actually have a living existence. It's not a dead formalistic letter. It's not some formalism. So that was Marx's Hegelian background. And Marx's materialism stemmed from the fact that he rejected the formal premise of Hegel, which was the Platonic idea. Now, where God figures into this is ambiguous from Marx's perspective, because God is actually not an idea. God is not a thought either. And the way the tradition of revelations, the revelatory tradition of Abrahamic religions at least, talks about God, seems to be talking about something material, seems to be talking about something beyond the threshold of our thoughts and our ideas,
That's
our language.
heresy.
That's what?
That's heresy.
Oh, it's heresy. Okay. I think it's actually heresy to call God a form or call God an idea, because that makes God finite instead of being infinite.
No, God is the ultimate being.
The ultimate being, I agree with you. But the identification of being with thoughts or ideas is a form of idolatry. And you're worshiping thoughts, just like idolaters who worship statues created by hand, you're worshiping thoughts created by the mind of man. I think that's actually heretical.
No, because the way it works is that the world is the objectification of God, of the most real being. And that
Sure.
is why the phenomenon is secondary in that way to the form. And that's why Plato rooted the forms as having ontological primacy over the world of sense, the world of
Hold
like
on, you're
sense
saying the
perception.
world, you're saying God is the most ultimate form of being, the real form of being.
Yeah.
So how does this in any way elevate the primacy of form?
The form in the Platonic sense.
Yeah, the form in the Platonic sense is
Is
the idea.
essence.
That's the form of logos. That's the idea. Okay?
But it's also essence.
No, for Plato, there's a reduction of essence to form, but that's idolatry. Just like reducing the essence of the divine to a statue, which is a form, is idolatry. Reducing it to the form of thought, the ultimate form of thought, is also idolatry. You realize for Plato, form is mind. That's what ultimately it is. It's the way the mind is creating reality.
No, mind accesses the forms, but the forms is something that is
Form
like the
is an
cause
idea.
is the
Form is
cause
an
of
idea.
our ideas.
Form is the same as the idea.
Form is the cause of our ideas.
Form is taking the after effect, which is human thought, reifying it as a god and saying that's the premise of all reality. That's what Plato did.
I think you have it reversed.
No.
I am therefore I think.
I don't care. I'm talking to Wooly right now. Plato was trying to say that reality is premised by idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's saying that what is different from that, from saying this reality is premised by this statue?
Because the statue is not idea, it's just the
But
statue
it
is
the form.
the material. It's not but it's a form given in sense perception. It's not a form. Forms are devoid
how is
of
it given?
of,
It
of
has to be
sense
built.
perception.
It's not given. It has to be built.
Built by who or by what?
By people.
Yeah, but man doesn't create the forms. That's the whole thing with Marx.
That's what I would object to.
Of the
I would
form.
object to that because I would say that
Then you think God is created by man.
No, God created man, including the mind of man, including the thoughts of man, and all ideas. God created all the ideas man has.
So is God an idea then, or is God?
No, you're saying God is an idea. I'm saying God is a reality beyond the threshold of ideas, beyond the threshold of language, and beyond the threshold of thought. Because that's
how do we
actually
access God?
Why don't you read the Bible and read the New Testament, read the Quran if you believe that? It's all through this it's through this sublime medium, through the medium of the sublime, which is the way.
Which is thought.
You know what revelation is? No, it's not. Revelation is not philosophy. Revelation is the exposure to a sublime reality, usually through something poetically mediated. It does not fit within the box of an idea or a form. It's beyond the threshold of that.
But it's not given to us as a phenomenon.
No, it uses phenomena to give expression to something greater. But it's actually through phenomena. Yes, it is. When the burning bush told Moses, "I am what I am," that was through phenomena.
The phenomena is just the veil. It's the Maya. our phenomena
You're
are
talking
necessary
in
illusions.
paganistic terms. I don't really. What do you mean the Maya? Thank you, PJ.
God is a
In
pre-order.
Hinduism, it's
Well, we're
essentially
talking
the
about the Abrahamic religions, all right? We're not talking about Hinduism.
all right. Well, it's also in the Kantian sense that it's a
Kant is
representation.
also building from Plato.
Yeah.
So that is classical paganism.
It's a representation. You're mistaking
It's
appearance for
not
thing in
it's not
itself.
a representation.
It
How
is
is it a representation? So you're
representational.
saying it's not a representation.
Well, how can we have access to it if it's not through a representation?
Access to what?
To the phenomenal world.
The phenomenal world is creation. Creation is not a representation, it's creation, it's created being.
Created by whom?
By God. What do you mean by who?
So you're a Cartesian then. That's just pure rationalist Descartes.
No, it was actually Descartes who formalized the whole history of philosophy by saying, yeah, I actually am just reducing being to thought, which was actually ambiguous before Descartes. Descartes is the one who cemented the identification of being with thought, which is something you seem to be doing as well when you identify God with thought.
No, what you're doing is you're posing yourself as the Cartesian subject, and God is giving you these objects to perceive. That is the entire point of
God.
Yeah.
No, I am positing myself as part of God's creation.
So you're just one of all the
No,
creations
it is
of God.
it's the most supreme creation of God. Obviously. I mean, that's what the whole point of the humanism aspect is.
So God is the world, essentially, is what you're saying.
No,
you're like
it's
a
just
pantheist.
that no, it's just that the reality of God is revealed to us through the world. Obviously, it is.
It's revealed.
See, the philosophers,
not directly.
The philosophers who began as pagans wanted to say that the reality of God is revealed to us through the mind. That is in direct contradiction to the revelatory tradition of the Abrahamic religions, where God always revealed his reality or his message to us through the world. It was never through from pure thinking or pure contemplation. That was with the philosophical cope that came afterwards. That's philosophers who tried to assimilate the revelatory traditions, which they always hated and always resented. And that is, if you read the Bible, you don't get any contemplative philosophy there. You get poetry if you read the Bible. It's the same thing with all the other holy books. You don't get this contemplative, pure thought, pure mind. This is all coming from Greek and Roman paganism.
It actually comes from Plato, in the way.
Yes,
it's
Greek,
in the same way that the soul is of the mind.
Yes, Greek and Roman paganism. What I said.
Yeah, but that's the same in Christianity, that you access God through the soul.
The soul is not the mind. Where has it ever been claimed in the New Testament that the soul is reducible to the mind? I mean, that's just vulgar.
The intellect is the highest faculty of the soul.
No, the soul is just as much evident in feeling and in emotion and in art and things like that. The soul is not just the pure contemplative mind.
But you think the soul is material. That's the whole point.
Of course I do.
Then where is this material soul that we can identify? Is it the heart?
No, I said the soul is material. Now you're saying, is the soul reducible to a form of immaterial reality? No, it's not. The soul being material just means that it dwells within the material. It's through the material that the soul realizes itself. But the soul is not actually reducible to anything that we can make intelligible in reality. Why are you making it seem like material being is a tangible substance fully accessible to the intellect? It's not.
That's what all materialists and Marx included.
No, Marx said the exact opposite.
As the material.
That is not what Marx said. Marx mocked Feuerbach and the materialists, those types of materialists, for saying read Marx's thesis on Feuerbach. It's an 11-point thesis. Marx accuses Feuerbach of only taking consideration matter in the one-sided form that is fully intelligible to the intellect and to thought and to ideas. Marx said Feuerbach doesn't actually respect or acknowledge material reality in its actual material being, because if he did that, he would recognize the significance, for example, of the proletarian class and the class struggle and the reality of man, which he didn't concern himself with. And if you actually look at the Abrahamic religions and study them, you will find that they very much do orient man to care about the world he lives in, to care about the reality of man around him. The Quran is especially the case here because it deals with the direct, like day-to-day, the Islamic tradition in general directly deals like, okay, what do we do as far as how do we take care of the poor? How do we do this? How do we do that? I mean, these are not... You are talking about some Gnostic heresy that doesn't have its origins in the revelatory tradition.
This is the kernel. This is the kernel of Christianity. Jesus said
disagree.
that my kingdom is not of this world. That if you truly love Christ and God, you'll realize that this world is impure in a way. And that's the realm. It's about the realm of the spirit.
He said it's not of this world, but it is of the world that believers create in the community of believers, which is here on earth.
It's not. It's in heaven. It's something.
What is heaven?
Otherworldly.
What is? Yeah.
But
this otherworldliness is a fact of reality and being. There's something about being itself that is otherworldly. And what Christ's message was for us to acknowledge that.
No,
instead of turning and worshiping idols and things that are immediate and here and now.
No, Christianity, this world, the realms of of this world are the existence is like in direct opposition to the essence.
That's Gnosticism. That's Gnosticism.
Now, that's true Christianity. That's the problem with Marxism. It's that it's materialist and humanist.
I think you're talking about some kind of Gnostic heresy. You're using phrases like existence versus the essence. This is philosophical language, nowhere to be found, directly speaking, in the New Testament.
But are you saying that the whole Christian worldview and Christian ethics are based off of rejection of the worldly and of embrace of the spiritual world?
No, you seem to be saying that, though I want to remind you that at best you're probably talking about one version of Christianity, which is Western Christianity, whereas the
Orthodox Christianity is the same.
It's absolutely not the same.
They practice asceticism.
So
They're
what?
Even more
the Orthodox
hardcore in
priests
that way.
can still get married and still live their lives, have children.
Why do you think they all rejected communism when the Bolsheviks arrived?
But they
Because
didn't
they recognize it's this worldly.
No, they
humanist
didn't
phenomenon.
all. Hold on. If the Orthodox Church, by the way, and the Orthodox establishment at the time of the Bolsheviks' arrival was so otherworldly, why were they so deeply corrupt and caught in embezzlement and corruption and sided with the czarist worldly state in the most corrupt manner? Why did they hunt down priests who raised the peasant question and said, "Hey, peasants can't get food. What about that?" So what to you? This is Christianity, just outright corruption and injustice. By the way, many Orthodox priests did welcome the Bolsheviks. Actually,
They canonized Saint Nicholas. They canonized Tsar Nicholas.
You're talking about in the 2000s or the 90s?
Yeah, in the Orthodox Church.
Well, we're all over the place now because I'm talking about at the time of the arrival of the Bolsheviks.
Yeah, but just because you can point to a few instances of priests who welcomed the Bolsheviks doesn't mean the entire
The modern day Russian
church.
Orthodox Church was built within the USSR. You know that, right? This is not the Tsar's Orthodox Church anymore. It's an institution that was established under Stalin.
And they're still recovering from the.
They're not recovering because if you go to
they're
churches,
from their
really, then if you go to
legacy, and that's why
church,
they
if you go to
canonized Saint
churches to
Nicholas.
this day, and you look at their well, I forgot the name for it. There's their glass murals or whatever. Stalin is there still. Who's recovering? They may be recovering from the period of madness and nihilism of the 80s and 90s. I agree with that. But why is there an alliance between the Orthodox Church and the Communist Party? If what you're saying is true.
Because they're in a popular front with Putin.
No, because the Church and the Communist Party are allied in ways that the United Russia and the Church are not. Meaning they both have the same, they're hardliners, the Communist Party and the Orthodox Church, whereas United Russia has a lot of liberals and pro-Westerners.
Yeah, well, that's the distinction. It's not on a philosophical or religious level. It's
really?
More
what about Zayuganov? Is Zayuganov a member of the Orthodox Church? Are members of the Orthodox Church the primary members of the Communist Party? Yes, they are. Most Communist Party members are also believers and part of the Orthodox Church.
That doesn't discount the legacy of Bolshevism that killed priests and tried to destroy Orthodox Christianity
that is
within the Soviet Union.
Did priests die in the history of the Russian Empire in Muscovy? Yes, they did. That's part of.
Yes, but there wasn't an institutionalized attack on priests and the church itself.
Yes, there was.
No, there wasn't. The church was in connection with the state.
The church? Are you kidding? What about Peter the Great and his assault on the church?
Yeah, but he never declared war on Christianity itself.
The Soviet state
Bolshevism was atheist.
The Soviet state never declared war on Christianity, not even once.
They did.
You're talking about the League of Militant Atheists, which was a non-state actor, which Stalin was never a fan of, and which, when he got the chance to after the Great Purges, he completely disbanded it and he curtailed their activities to the point of dissolution. Talking about the League of Militant Atheists.
That doesn't discount all the churches that were burned and the priests that were murdered and the
propaganda
but you're also
that was
spread
not
about
accounting
the
for
church.
the way the church was infiltrated by Freemasons and infiltrated by Satanists for nearly 100 years under the Romanovs. Will you acknowledge that?
Is it just a coincidence then that the atheism of Marxism coincided with the state atheism of the Soviet Union?
It's not a coincidence.
Exactly, it's not.
Who said it was a coincidence? It's not a coincidence.
And that's the essential problem of MAGA communism. Is that legacy of communism, even if that's not what you explicitly advocate for?
Is the United States of America from the days of the Founding Fathers state atheist?
No.
Well, we do have a separation of church and state.
Yeah, that's not state atheism.
What's the difference then?
Because state atheism enforces an atheistic worldview.
Not true. It actually means like the same thing in a different context. It means the state is not, it means the state is not partial to any religion. So they call it atheism because the state will not acknowledge any establishment of religion in its formal capacity. Now, to say this is essential to Marxism or communism is not true, but that is the history, and I agree that's the history. But now you have the Communist Party of the Russian Federation, and if they ever were to get to power, that certainly wouldn't be the case anymore, because communism's a history, and it's a history of learning, and it's a history of development. And communists today, generally speaking, are no longer hostile toward religion.
Because the Chinese Communist Party is.
Which Communist Party?
CCP.
It's actually not.
The Cultural Revolution.
The Cultural Revolution, I mean, it's not like they were beginning from a place of religion. The Chinese Confucian Society was never particularly religious in the traditional sense anyway, so no.
It was spiritual. That's it goes back to even the.
You don't think the Cultural
more
Revolution was
philosophical.
spiritual? What do you think spirit means?
What do you mean?
Spiritual doesn't mean belief in metaphysical superstitions. Spiritual means acknowledging, this kind of ephemeral reality of art and ideas and consciousness and all these kinds of things, and the soul. That's what the
Cultural Revolution all tried to destroy.
No, it didn't. It was literally called the Cultural Revolution.
Because it was an attack on the cultural history of China.
No, it wasn't. That was
rooted in the ancient Chinese traditions.
That was the destroy the four olds campaign, which didn't last forever, by the way, and which ended because at first it was popular, and then local party bosses used it as a way to avoid accountability, and be tyrants against the peasants, so they rolled it back. And then, what does that have to do with today's China anyway, though? Because today's China remembers the legacy of the Cultural Revolution, including the excesses and mistakes made then. You're faulting the history of communism because of mistakes and errors that were made, as if, there were no mistakes and errors made in the history of any part of mankind. Man, if you're a Christian, you understand man is imperfect. Man is not God. Man will make mistakes. That doesn't mean man is not the most prized of God's creation. And that doesn't mean that the whole history of communism can be dismissed because of mistakes that were made, which communists themselves acknowledge as mistakes. It would be arrogant to say, if I make one mistake, everything I did was bullshit. That's not very Christian.
You're acting as if these were like accidental mistakes. They were fundamental points of the ideology of communism, which is why they appear across communist states.
Okay, whether they were accidental or not is besides the point. They are still remembered as mistakes.
Not by all communists. Not by the majority of communists.
Yes, they are actually. That is actually the official canon within the Communist Party of China. That's official canon. That it was a mistake. Not the whole thing, but that there were excesses that were mistakes. That's official canon, yes.
What about the CPUSA?
You mean the party that we're at war with, trying to take it over?
Yeah, but they're your comrades.
The CPUSA is even more milquetoast. The CPUSA is not militant atheist, and they're not particularly pro-Mao or pro-Stalin. And they're even more, they're maybe you like the CPUSA, honestly, because they're extremely, soft on everything relating to the history of communism. Where they say, we just want liberalism, basically, and, so I don't know. I don't know why you're bringing them up. I mean, we're trying to take over that party.
Because when you talk about a MAGA communist, those are the people that you're essentially saying need to be the leading us.
Here's why communists had a hard time with religion and history. Because we sat here and we said we don't want people to be whores and prostitutes for bankers who sell their daughters to be sex slaves for bankers, and we don't want Jeffrey Epstein to rape children. And then you came and you said, you're just focusing too much on the world. And so we said, okay, fuck it. We hate religion because this is just bullshit. But then later we realized that's not actually what religion's about. It's just philosophy cells hijacking the language of religion to defend the elites and defend the capitalist ruling class. So that's where we are now. But if you want to talk about why was there a misunderstanding in the beginning, probably because there was people like you who defended the bankers and the elites and the capitalists in the name of religion. Because you're saying we're focusing too much. False. We're focusing too much on the world because we don't want our children to be raped. I'm sorry, that's
communism was communism was against morality. That is the complete
Then why was the
opposite.
USSR and every communist state more profoundly moral than any period of capitalist American history?
Not any period.
Yes, any period, because every period of capitalist American history had prostitution.
The founding period of
America. There was prostitution, yes.
And so did, when the Soviet Union took power, they legalized prostitution. And abortion. They legalized abortion.
Wait. Hold on. The Soviet Union legalized prostitution. Now that is news.
Okay, well, maybe it wasn't legalized.
No, it was not legalized or
legalized,
tolerated in any capacity. And there
but it
was
was
a
very
written...
widespread, and abortion was
Really?
legalized.
Really?
It was the
Lenin
first,
had a
the first,
written order during the Civil
Who was the
War.
first nation to legalize abortion? It was the Soviet Union.
No, the Soviet Union had an abortion crisis, regardless of what the law was, and they just couldn't keep throwing women in jail for it because it was so widespread. But the policy debate was focused on preventing the cause of abortion and reducing abortions. It's just that you're not going to reduce abortions by throwing everyone in jail because it's a widespread crisis of women who wanted to abort their fetuses because of the marriage crisis, the chaos of the Civil War. But nobody was
because
there
of the
saying,
starvation that was caused by the
No one in the
Bolsheviks.
Soviet Union was saying abortion was a good thing. No one was. And then by the time Stalin came to power, it was made criminalized. So what's your point?
You tried to say that the Soviet Union was more moral than any period of U.S. history. It's clearly false.
It was.
It wasn't. They legalized abortion, and even if you look at the philosophical...
Okay, then that's great. When was abortion illegal in the United States?
Well, that was left up to the states, but for most of its history, it was illegal.
Okay, well, the USSR never allowed babies to be aborted at the 7th trimester, or the fucking last trimester, like 7 months in or 8 months in, like Portland and Washington did.
Yeah, liberalism and this post-modernity that the West is facing is obviously much
so
worse.
don't compare the immorality of the West to communist states, because you didn't have porn, you didn't have prostitution, you didn't have drug promotion, you didn't have any of that fucking nonsense. You had a healthy society of family values, athleticism, health, fitness, hard work. That was the foundation of those societies. Profoundly conservative societies, fully in line with Christian values. You didn't have any of this fucking Jeffrey Epstein bullshit.
Yeah, and its basis was in the Eastern traditions of Christianity and
I agree.
Their overall traditionalism. It wasn't rooted. Communism was a modern.
That was communism. That's what communism was. Yes, it was.
No, communism is just, you need to read.
No, communism is not an idea. It's a real movement of people. Marx says
it's a product of modernity.
No, sure. Communism is a product of modernity, and it's also the reaction to modernity is also a product of modernity too. And communism just so happens to be one of the products of modernity that saved the soul of millions of people from the evil of modernity and the ravaging monstrosity of modernity which the West faced. West Germany versus East Germany. West Germany versus Eastern Germany. Which one was more degenerate? Where did Lucifer reign more? East Germany or West Germany? Where was Lucifer happier?
West Germany, but
yeah,
there's a reason for that. That's a logical fallacy.
It's not a logical fallacy. Every
because
communist
it's purely
state.
Relative.
All right, where does Lucifer reign more? North Korea or South Korea? You're saying it's a coincidence that in all of these communist states, Lucifer has less reign out of a coincidence. That's not a coincidence.
You know why that is? Because all these Marxists that came from the Soviet Union, they ended up coming to America and contributing to this.
Then why didn't they do it in the Soviet Union itself? That's completely illogical. You're saying the poison came from the Soviets. They tried to.
They did in the beginning.
Then what happened to them?
Well, then Stalin came in.
Okay, well then who was the real Marxist then? Because it seems like Stalin was the real Marxist, and these were British liberal agents.
Stalin was not orthodox to the Marxist tradition whatsoever. Socialism in one country.
Well, then Marx himself was not, and neither was Lenin.
So did Marx not write of a stateless, classless, moneyless society?
Not once.
Really?
Not once.
Did Engels write about that?
Not once.
I'm pretty sure he did.
No, they did allude to an eventual withering away of the... They alluded to an eventual withering away of the modern state. What... And of the form of money, sure. So what... But they never defined communism in that way. because communism for Marx was the real movement to sublate the present state of things. It was the real movement to overcome Luciferian modernity.
Did Marx not embrace modernity?
He
Marx advocated for free trade because he thought it would bring the dissolution of nations faster.
Marx embraced all of the things about modernity that would overcome the evil of modernity. Marx believed that you can. Why did he disconnect? You can. Well, I didn't disconnect him. You guys see me. I didn't do that. Why did he? Did anyone disconnect him?
I have no clue.
Yeah. Well, Marx, is he still here? Well, to finish what I was saying, Marx believed you can use the very weapon of the ruling class against them. And that was the Christian irony Marx believed in, actually. Just like how when Christ was crucified, that would be turned against the people who thought they won and prevailed with the resurrection. Marx believed with the evil of modernity that this unleashing of the productive forces would be turned against the bourgeoisie itself. So it's the same Christological view, actually. So Mab is next. Go ahead, Mab.
Oh, yeah. Sorry for cutting in earlier. I didn't realize kind of what your format was. I just wanted to say it's been really impressive with how you've been kind of I don't know how to put it, like kind of meshing with the people with where they're at and speaking their language.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare it with how you took down Maniaci. I just wanted to say it's really impressive. The discipline on either end of the attitudes. All right, that's it.
All right, Edward, you're up.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey,
Has,
what's
right?
up?
So I'm a MAGA conservative, and I joined the space because someone shared it. So I'm not actually familiar with this movement or anything, but I think everyone so far has sort of been debating you on the communism side of everything and sort of getting into these weeds about the history of communism and these theological discussions, and it seems totally unrelated to the topic. So I'm sort of more interested in talking about MAGA. And to be honest, I'm not an expert on communism. I'm much more familiar with Trump and MAGA as a movement. So I'm sort of interested. A few things sort of came up to me while I was listening. What about, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you're describing MAGA as more of like a ideology, as sort of like a philosophical movement, as opposed to like being tied to Trump as an individual. Is that right?
Well, I don't think it's really either. I think MAGA is just a movement of people who are at the point of no return as far as trusting any of the establishment politics anymore, and who are only loyal to Trump in that they reject the mainstream media's narratives that they tried to create for 4 years about him, right? These are all the people, like there's two sides of America, right? When you hear January 6th, do you hear bullshit? That's the MAGA world, right? Do you believe it? Well, that's that's the libtards and the rhinos. So I just see MAGA as people who are just part of this different fork in the road. There's a fork in the road in America, right? And one side is just a point of no return, and the other side is going down libtard lane. So that's how I would describe it.
Let me ask you then. So in terms of Trump, 'cause I'm just sort of interested in Trump as a figure, as possibly being someone, say like if this were to become like a pragmatic conversation about how would you usher in this MAGA communist regime. For Trump's platform in 2015 and 2016 when he was running initially, to me, and why I voted for Trump was he was standing apart from the sort of like fake dialectic of neoliberalism and neoconservatism. He had like next to people on the stage like Jeb Bush saying like, okay, I'm going to call out the donors and the special interests, and I'm going to like repeal NAFTA. He was like anti-free trade. He was talking about protectionism, nationalism, nativism. I'm sort of curious what specifically about those policies, which to me were the defining policies of MAGA originally, sort of like protectionism, getting out of unfair trade deals, talking about we're going to win against foreign countries, we're going to stop losing as a nation.
And then also somewhat of what the previous guy brought up about there being sort of like an ideal. But I don't want to get into philosophy. I think more so it's just about like nativism and patriotism than it is some like, you.
Oh my god, fuck me. Yeah, I briefly disconnected because my thing crashed, but you can go ahead.
Okay, did you hear everything or no?
I think I heard like said you said something like do you agree with this view of MAGA, something like that?
Well, yeah, I just want to know, like, do you think Trump's like policies, which originally defined MAGA, not like what it became and throughout his presidency, but stuff like protectionism, his nationalism, his anti-immigration
I think the
stances.
basic thrust that I saw the foundation of MAGA was bringing the productive jobs back, right? I think it's like, and I think that created an entire dynamic because it's like, okay, in order to bring the jobs back, we have to like be against the financial oligarchy. We have to be, and then I think everything just stemmed from that. Is my analysis.
Okay, well, so if I were a libtard, I would say to you, well, Trump wasn't doing that out of concern for the working class or the proletariat. He was doing that out of racism towards like Mexicans. He
Yeah, I
just
mean,
wanted to like build the wall to keep the
no,
Mexicans
I
out,
agree.
not to
That's
like
how they would
benefit them.
say it, but I don't think it's either. I think the point was he was speaking truth, and Trump's intentions don't matter to me because it's like he just realized, holy shit, a lot of people hear what I'm saying, and it resonates with them, and he just kept like he kept feeding into that dynamic.
So he was like a true populist, like a true
Yeah,
demagogue in the sense of like man of the demos, the people.
I think he was a populist. Yeah, I think so. I don't know what his intentions were. I mean, I can't speak to that. I have my skepticism. I don't think it matters that much.
So like him as a figure, he's not a communist figure, but insofar as he was a populist and what the working class, which was his base,
I
was
think he like
demanding was
accidentally.
communist
I
policies, that
think
it's they sort of line.
yeah. I don't think Trump is a communist. I just think he accidentally unlocked a kind of American communism. But he didn't even know he was doing that.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up was you mentioned, and this was funny. I've been sort of surprised listening to this at how much I agree with you. Um, you said like you're like fundamentally illiberal, like you talked about like bringing in the Taliban and stuff, and like I mean, hey, it's hard to disagree with that given the state of the United States at the moment. But like to me, MAGA has sort of proved itself to be ineffective in sort of counteracting liberalism
Yeah.
because I think Trump ended up being like a totally liberal president. I mean, if we look
Yeah,
at what he's done in
he
the past
is.
few
He
weeks, like
was.
he
Yeah.
just like had that big party for the log cabin Republicans, the gay
Yeah.
Republicans
Yeah.
at
I saw.
Mar-a-Lago.
I saw.
Like, what is he doing? Like,
He was always
and
like
it's
that.
not, yeah,
I
it's
actually
not that
remember.
he was ever a
Yeah.
conservative, but still, it's
Even
like
in 2015, that was there. But I mean,
the
it's just
point
the
is I was
trouble.
making was that MAGA was never like a illiberal movement in that sense that perhaps communism would be in your vision.
Yeah, it wasn't. And I think, see, this is a big problem because it's a media problem. Here's the issue: is that MAGA kind of created all of these new forms of media and these new cultural, influencers and these just new blood of people under Trump who are combating the mainstream media's lies and fighting against them. But what you had happen was Trump did not really he didn't like promote those people. He didn't actually embrace that. He just kept watching Fox News and he kept caring about what Fox News says and all that shit.
Yeah, he had Jared
So
Kushner
that
handlers
this is
around him all the time.
especially what happened when COVID came around. I'm on YouTube, so we can't talk about the details, but it's just like Trump was very pro-vax, right? And that's
Right. Yeah, I
yeah,
was gonna bring that up too because
yeah,
you were like 2 hours ago you were talking to some guy and he was talking about like big pharma and it's like Trump holds that as like his biggest accomplishment. It's like, oh,
right.
Operation
Because
Warp
he didn't
Speed. It's like,
listen
are
to
you
his.
kidding me?
Thank you
If
so much,
anyone
PJ.
thinks
Appreciate you,
Trump's
man.
appeal was racism, never actually watched any of his speeches. Turn MSNBC off. Trump was our first libertarian
Yeah. So
president.
yeah, I mean, Trump never listened to his movement. He kept listening to Fox News because he thought his movement was Fox News. But he didn't realize there was this culture war that was happening, even as early as 2016, that was decentralized in the information age. He never, like, gave into that dynamic or kind of embraced it. I don't think he could have, because, you know, Trump's a boomer. Trump's just a boomer. He doesn't understand any of that stuff. He doesn't understand
fundamentally
the
a boomer.
He doesn't understand this kind of, like, he understands culture like how he did 50 years ago, which is TV, cable TV, the ratings on cable TV. So he just kept focusing on Fox News, right? And so the problem, though, is that the ruling elite saw this problem in Trump, and they were like, okay, we're going to prop up DeSantis, and we're going to have him focus a lot on the culture war stuff and capitalize on a niche that Trump is not doing.
Yeah, it's a total guise.
So DeSantis
under that veneer of anti-woke, he is the exact same neoconservative as
Oh
Jeb
yeah,
Bush.
I know. It's just that DeSantis is capitalizing on the two Achilles heels. Trump didn't wage a good culture war, and then Trump was bad on the vax and he was bad on CDC, according to the MAGA base. So it's like MAGA was this alternative world of America, alternative facts, blah blah blah, new media, new voices. They're being pushed to the fringes. They're not listening to anything. But Trump is not actually working with that. He's not embracing it. But Ron DeSantis is. It's just that Ron DeSantis is doing it in a way that's going to kill the foundation of MAGA. And my whole angle with this is that the foundation of MAGA is a working class movement trying to reindustrialize America and trying to build a new form of hegemony by the working man. So DeSantis may be playing to some of the results of the MAGA movement,
boss.
Right? But he's going to do it in a way that's going to kill the foundation. So to me, MAGA communism is about going back to the foundation.
So what do you think of, so I know a lot of people on the right now are sort of espousing
Thank you so much, Janar. Appreciate you, man.
Class populism to sort of have Trumpism and MAGA without Trump. And I'm sort of curious what you think. What will unite people of different ethnic backgrounds, people of different races, and people of different religions in the United States to sort of work towards that same goal when they weren't really doing that under Trump? Like, if you look at the demographics, I mean, like working class Black people and Latinos didn't go for Trump nearly as much as like working class
the
white
US
people.
is mostly,
so it seems the divide isn't economic or class.
I mean, but the US is still a mostly white country. So it's not really surprising that MAGA is mostly white. The US is still mostly white. The foundation of America is still mostly white. But I will say there is a huge Latino shift. There's also a even more slight shift from the Black community, and all sorts of minorities are, they're turning red, but in the Republican sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is though with so many immigrants coming into the country, if a majority of them if they are going to vote Democrat, just statistically, I mean, a Republican isn't really going to get elected.
I don't think the rate.
These people are voting.
I think there's a rate of immigration, but there's also an unintended effect. The Democrats are realizing is that these generations of immigrants, the new ones, are turning red, like Latinos. And then I'm in Michigan, and I'm around Dearborn, Michigan. And I'm witnessing that dynamic happen also with the Arabs and the Muslim community, is that it's just a lot of them are becoming Republican, like at an unprecedented rate.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think as a true conservative, I'm probably closer to those Sharia law people in Dearborn than I am to like Mitch McConnell.
Right,
like
exactly.
Any of these people.
Yeah, it's because immigrants, they don't really. At the end of the day, a lot of immigrants believed in the American dream, and the Democrats are not really. The Democrats are offering a kind of, nightmarish, like institutionalized system of just everyone's under control. I mean, but I don't think that's necessarily gonna. I think the heart and soul of America it's still only going to be a few ethnicities. It's mainly the white working class. And then second, I would say, is the black belt, the black working class, especially in the black belt, Georgia, and all those places that have been consolidated by Democrats. But, notice people like Farrakhan and a lot of black leaders are waging a kind of covert guerrilla war, not so much covert, but a guerrilla war against this kind of plantation Democrat political situation. And I think that's very promising from what I'm seeing develop. And then
I think
and then you have Latinos closer to the border and elsewhere, California, Texas, and stuff. So I think there are other minorities in this country, obviously, but those three are the main ones in America, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you that they are probably going to turn more red over time. Like if you look at the statistics, like the people most hurt by immigration are the like next generation of immigrants themselves. They're hurt by the next people that come in. It's just sort of a question to me of like, well, how bad does it have to get economically for these people before they sort of turn to like an alternative to neoliberalism?
Oh well,
and
I think it's happening already, and I think Trump, this is his opportunity. We are facing, BlackRock just admitted we're facing a bigger recession than 2008. Okay.
Do you really think Trump is the person to do it though? Like, did you see his speech, like his announcement speech? He's like talking about inflation. He's so low energy.
No, I mean, ideally, he's not. If he was smart, he would capitalize on it, because DeSantis just offers culture war stuff right now. That's working. But I think when bread and butter issues become the main issue, I think people will probably want to move a little bit more than just that, right? DeSantis doesn't offer anything more than culture stuff. And I think...
Yeah, I agree with you. And
so I think Trump, if he was smart, he would probably focus more on... He would do the culture stuff turbocharged with the economic stuff. But I don't think he's going to... Honestly, you want to hear what I think about Trump? It doesn't look good. Trump's prospects do not look good for 2024. I don't think he knows what he's walking into right now.
Well, he's selling NFTs. You can't like that as a communist.
Yeah, that was a very bad look to me. That NFT stuff as well. So Trump, I'm not optimistic. I think but I think there's still this MAGA movement, and it would be such a shame for that just to kind of dissolve into a DeSantis deception.
It's going to be co-opted into the GOP, it looks like, if there is no able successor to Trump. That's not DeSantis, of course.
Yeah, I think
someone younger, someone who actually understands the youth, but with that Trumpism that was so appealing to Americans.
So who do you think? Is there anyone at the moment?
Yeah, I do think that his son is right for the job. I know a lot of people will disagree with
Trump
me.
Trump
Jr.
But
yeah, he does understand MAGA, but he also understands the culture war stuff. So he's a combination of the economics of Trump, the pro-working class economics of Trump, but he also understands the culture war aspect, and he talks about it a lot, which is something that Trump avoided. Right? So he gets it. He gets that these two things need to be synthesized.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that I think he gets it in some sense, but I find him personally to be incredibly cringe and sort of like much weaker than Trump as a person and much less authentic. Like he posts like boomer memes all the time. And like, whereas Trump was like, he was like red hot in 2015 and 2016. He was going on CNN and saying, well, someone's doing the raping to Don Lemon. Like this guy was something else. He was a different animal. Donald Trump Jr. is not really that, but I agree with you that I think he probably could get elected.
Yes, because if you look at polls from last summer, they actually said, who's going to succeed Trump and take on the Republican Party, who would win most Republicans. And Don Jr. was above Ron DeSantis in the poll, believe it or not. And I think it could work. And also, I find Don Jr. better on foreign policy than his father.
Really?
Yeah, I've looked into this for a while. And I do think that Don Jr. would be best. It's the only way to stop MAGA from being co-opted into the broader GOP establishment. You need someone who's anti-establishment. And also, Don Jr. is more, I guess, open to working with libertarians than Trump was. So Don Jr. would have people like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and etc. And he talks shit about the rhinos all the time. He hates the GOP establishment more than Trump does.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like when I see how bad the country is in terms of like moral decay, I really don't think we need like a Don Jr. That just doesn't really speak to me.
But I mean, you're
honestly,
not going
if Edward, if you want my plan, I am not really interested in an electoral strategy for 2024. I think that is lost.
No, yeah, me neither. I agree with you.
I am not like here to sell.
You need both. You need both.
Well,
So
Edward, where I'm
personally-
coming from is that I actually just want to do the work right now of building a more long-term kind of work of building a political institution, specifically a political party that can be a viable alternative to either take advantage of the split that's coming in the GOP, maybe even some of the Democrats, or just be a viable political platform and alternative to run local candidates and things like that. Also having a unifying vision. But, I mean, if you want to look at what I think is coming for America, I think we are headed for a breakdown of the political institutions and the political system, which means probably something like civil war. And what civil war
Can I mention something?
Yeah, just give me a second. Civil war to me means that, you know, I want there to be an independent political party for the working class that can just defend the rights and the interests of the American people. Because I think we're going to get to a point politically where we're going to have this balkanization and this political chaos, and we're going to have NATO probably step in, or Britain or something. And I just think we need to prepare for the future. So I resonate a lot with the libertarian kind of militia movement people and stuff. It's like I'm my heart is there right now, to be honest.
So I think what's going to occur is basically this is all mental masturbation, to be honest with you, because I think we're keeping our eye off the ball with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. I think that war is going to intensify, and it's going to intensify to such an extent that we're going to see potentially the elections being suspended due to an emergency under the Emergencies Act. They're going to suspend the elections and go to war. We're going to see.
No, I think you're right. I can see that. I think that's an example, though, of a breakdown that's coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On all fronts. If you see it economically, monetary, fiscally, everything is actually breaking down. It's actually done by design as well. It's all planned out, right? I mean, it seems for the average commoner, it might seem like very strange as to why this is all occurring. But this is all being set in stone. This is all being played out so that it controls and centralizes power, because this is ultimately the way that everything's going. Centralization, extreme centralization. Like you mentioned BlackRock. You know, what are BlackRock doing? They're buying swathes of like houses and mortgages in like complete communities in order for them to control people. Because what did the World Economic Forum say? They said that you will own nothing and you'll be happy. So they want everyone to be renters. When the CBDCs come back, when CBDCs hit like next year, because they're piloting it already. SWIFT is starting to set it up on their system. That's the payment transaction system that basically enables your Visa and your MasterCard to be used over 11,000 banks in the world. That's already been set up. Once you have CBDCs, you have no freedom. It's finished. Okay, so ultimately speaking, all of this stuff about what party you belong to and all that, it means nothing ultimately.
Yeah, I agree, but I think if you want to ask me what I think politics is right now, to me, politics is building a organization that has roots in people and resources, so that when shit does hit the fan, I mean, there's something to fall back on. That's what I like.
I agree with you.
There needs to be a political. There needs to be an organized political resistance.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah. And I think that's not going to happen in a federal state. That's not going to happen from a federal level. It's going to happen more of a.
No,
like you mentioned earlier,
I ultimately
grassroots.
agree with you. I don't have illusions about electing a you know a revolutionary president. So I'm not there, right? But I just think the reason you have to involve yourself in federal politics and local politics is because that's what people understand politics to be. That's how people are organized right now. That's how they understand. That's where power is right now, right?
Well, that's exactly like if you look at history in terms of like World War II, like the British, for example, when they're getting blitzed by the Germans, you know, the local, they're mobilizing local politicians would be basically mobilizing people, right, on the local level, and that would actually enable communities to kind of gain strength amongst each other.
It's like to build a political hegemony that people respect as a legitimate institution of power. You need to, you know, speak their language both in practice and in reality, right?
It's going to be, for me, it's very there's a sense of trepidation because I know I can see the trends as to where this is all going, but it's like I have nothing to stop it. It's like a train crash in slow motion.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I just
You
feel
can at best slow it down.
you can, and it's the thing you can do, I guess, is try to
I think,
you know, I guess, prepare for the worst.
I think, you know, it should speed up because the longer it takes for this thing to collapse, the more time, you know, we're just kind of dwelling in this limbo where I just think it's kind of like if it's gonna happen, let it happen, you know, and I think it is gonna happen.
Well, I mean, Trump did do his job in speeding it up. Wouldn't you agree?
I think what's going to happen is ultimately, you know, it's non-sustainable. So it's like a hockey stick, right? Pattern. So initially, everything seems to be like gradually kind of grinding on, but then ultimately, the numbers just don't add up. So they'll just have to just, you know, accelerate at some point. And at that point, you know, you get things like hyperinflation, because when hyperinflation starts to kick in, I think Americans, collective West, you know, they're just going to not even understand what's happened. It's just going to happen so quickly.
You're right. Yeah.
And I think when that happens, you know, when CBDCs come in, because I think that's initially what's happening.
I think the terrifying thing is that this is not a chaotic crisis necessarily.
No,
it's a controlled crisis. So it's a crisis that's been planned. It's one that they're prepared to solve already. You know what I mean? Like, so that does not leave us a lot of wiggle room to,
you know, the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution.
Yeah, exactly. And I understand. Yeah. So we're not really in a position to take advantage of any chaotic breakdown. That's not really where I'm coming from. But I do think we're in a position to take advantage to responding to how they're going to resolve it.
But here's the thing, though. If you look at it, I mean, what they're essentially doing, they're creating dependencies. Or we're going to be dependent on them more so, because of the fact that. And here's the thing, like right now, I think this is like this is a moment that you have to kind of build something where you have less dependency on them when they actually start. You know, focusing and dropping that grid on people, that kind of technological grid that's coming. How much are you able to be less dependent on them? Well, does that mean you become more self-sufficient? I don't know.
It's a North American Union. They want an EU-like setup for Canada, the US, and Mexico. And when this shit goes down, when things get much worse, that's what they're going to present as the solution. And MAGA is, exactly. MAGA is a barrier to that, right?
I think China is actually the model for the world, to be honest with you. Social credit system.
But that's domestic policy. And a lot of people do say that. I don't think in terms of, I mean, like China would never unite with Japan and another country and have an EU sort of setup.
I don't mean like China is in like, I don't mean China as in like the Chinese.
I think what's going to happen is that they're going to take aspects of the Chinese system and kind of twist it mainly by the private sector too. And it's going to
be... So they're rolling out the whole soft, you know, the kind of like soft rollout of the social credit system. And they're doing that here.
I think what's happened is that like there's this idea of the social credit system, which is not how it exists in China, but it's actually going to exist like that here. I do agree with that.
It's like, you know, here's the thing, right? In China, it's hardcore, but over here, it's basically like it's going to be social credit system light. So you're going to have, I mean, essentially speaking,
I think in China, it's very localized and it's not really what most people think. It's not.
Well, the thing is, the Chinese social credit system is very, like you said, it's very localized. It's very general, and then depending on who you are, like for example, the Uyghurs, their social credit system is much more stringent versus like everybody else.
I don't think so. I think there's
no. I'll tell you how. Because I've looked into this, and basically, like the social credit system, you get scored between like 1 and 0.
No, I've look. There's a huge campaign right now to go to war with China, and a lot of this stuff is just Radio Free Asia propaganda.
No, I'm not saying this as an opposition to China. I'm just explaining you the technology and how it works. So what I'm saying to you is that in China, the general public, they get scored between 1 and 100. So if you don't pay your taxes, if you buy, even if you were to purchase alcohol, jaywalk, whatever, right, that will drop your score. And you'll still have enough to kind of still be able to, work out a situation with the government. But with the Uyghurs, it's like yes or no. Like there is no 100 score. There's no like, you can kind of be 50 or 60. But over there, it's like if you're down below like 60 or 50, your travel's restricted, your banking's restricted, you can't eat food, you're literally under house arrest. So that's the thing.
I recommend I actually made a video on this on my YouTube. I didn't, but my colleagues did, and they did a lot of in-depth research. And a lot of these things are just fabrications. Honestly, it's really not how it works.
I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I need to go. I wanted to ask what your YouTube channel was because I'm sort of curious about this conversation.
It's just Infrared on YouTube.
Infrared.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll be.
I can DM it to you.
Yeah.
Hey, Hayes. I mean, I know you say that, right? But the thing is, it's easy to kind of quote. We have to kind of back it up with the actual reference as to what you mean by that, because I could just pick up like any. I'm not arguing your point. I think your point is valid. There could be the fact that
I think the source should be from Chinese people themselves, because with the research on my channel,
of course,
is just about what's actually on the books.
Yeah.
How it was drafted, how it was implemented, what was the intention, and it was mainly for companies, not individuals. And it doesn't work like you're not under house arrest. And the social credit system, it's not some binding system on individuals. It's not how it works.
Well, I mean, everyone uses WeChat there, right, in China. So ultimately, you're not using cash any longer, right? You're using your mobile phone everywhere. And so it's a bit like the Amazon Go kind of shops, right? So you go in there with your QR code and everything is actually registered there. Your insurance, your tax data, everything's there, right? So ultimately, that's been tracked. And if you go against certain, like, government mandates, whatever, you're gonna basically be you'd be flagged for doing something which is not correct. And then with what's going on right now in China, again, I have Chinese friends and I understand what they're going through, and there's a lot of like mystification right now with what's happening in China. I don't entirely know what's occurring there because we're getting it through the Western lens. We don't exactly know the truth of it, what's really going on. I completely agree with you there.
Yeah. So yes, you seem like you wanted to say something, or how about Mab? You can go first because you have your hand up.
I wanted to just say point out that Donald Trump didn't start any wars.
Yeah, it's true.
It's people don't really like, he was rude, but look at the effect of, like, we have a common enemy. The Biden built his entire political and personal fortune off the private prison industry. That's where Kamala Harris comes from too.
Hey, yes, you don't know me, but I went to fucking high school with you, dude.
All right, well, this is not a high school reunion, so let's speed up. Yes, go ahead.
No way, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys can kiss in the locker room afterwards. Let's.
All right, bye. I'm not gonna dox, but I went to high school with you, nigga.
All right, go ahead. Yes.
Oh no, I just wanted to say, yo, Haz, you remember I was on one of your showdowns like a while ago, like a year ago, I think. I just wanted to see.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I hope you're doing good, man. I know they've been trying to silence you. That shit's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But you'll be back, man. I already know.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. I hope.
Yeah. So who do you think that Julius Assange should be released and given a pardon?
Me? Oh yeah, absolutely. Me, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to get a pardon from Biden?
Yes.
Wait, why is Julian Assange getting a pardon?
Because everybody has jumped on board the Julian Assange bandwagon.
Who
New York
has? This is
Times,
news?
The Guardian,
What?
everybody is calling for the freeing of Julian Assange. The
Why?
Australian government is even saying, Biden, please drop the charges. Everybody's on
I'm
board
not
the free
seeing it.
Assange train now. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
He
I'll
faces
send it to you.
growing pressure. Biden faces a renewed push to drop charges against Assange. Well, then why did they keep him for so long?
That's why I think it's fishy, right? If everybody is suddenly
Yeah.
jumping on board, what is going on? New York Times, I mean, they haven't said a thing about this. I mean, they were against it. Why are they suddenly doing this? It's
The thing
very
is,
odd. I can't seem to
WikiLeaks
figure
has
it out.
always been. I don't know. I can't indict Assange, but I can say WikiLeaks has always kind of been a little bit sketchy, just a little bit.
Yes.
Because not a lot of people remember this, but WikiLeaks kind of had this thing where they were like, you know, we want to also.
Well, they were involved
leak...
with the dark web, with Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff, right?
Well, it was also that they were kind of being used against Iran and Russia. And I think Iran at one point thought WikiLeaks was like CIA front. I remember that.
Progressive International. You know, that's the Bernie, Yanis Varoufakis, Lula alliance. They're leading this.
Yeah, I'm 100% for Assange being freed. That's unconditional to me. But I also want to, keep an open eye on, like, why are all of these... Because you remember in 2016, that wasn't the case. All these progressives and liberals were, like, super anti-Assange because they blamed him for Trump's election and because he was aligned with Trump. So,
right.
It was just irrational. It was just irrational. Trump, that's Trump syndrome.
Here's what I think is happening, though. I think that the Democrats recognize that this is something that progressives have been demanding for a while, and they want to get a single own on Trump because Trump did not free Julian Assange, and this is how they're going to one-up Trump.
I think it's probably a little bit more...
It's deeper than that, but I think in terms of optics, that's what they want to do.
Well, it could also be that he has information that perhaps indicts Trump even more or something else. Who knows?
I think it could also be that it's not only bad optics for domestic politics, it's always been a point of bad optics for international politics because critiques of U.S. democracy worldwide always bring up the Assange case. Just, as an indictment on American democracy. So it could also be something like that, but...
Yeah, it could be like them trying to find some legitimacy with the people, perhaps, because for far too long, they felt that they've delegitimized their position with COVID and all this other stuff. And so they'll need something to kind of bring people back on board with them because, they're clearly getting closer to elections and everything. So
right, that's one aspect of it, but I do think I agree with Haas that it's deeper.
No, of course it's deeper because obviously, like, he wouldn't be in prison for that long if it wasn't. I mean, he clearly knows something that most people don't, and it's just unbelievable that he's been in incarceration for so long. And it's interesting that all the reporters, since there was like this whole like gaggle of reporters who wanted to kind of like get around him, and why suddenly now? It just makes no sense. Well, actually, not really, because he's always had people rallying for him. It's just become more vocal now.
No, it's
so I want to reorient this.
Sorry.
And focus on the MAGA communism thing. So is there anyone who wants to make the case against MAGA communism? Because I remember I was banned on Twitter for many months, and as the originator of the idea, at least officially speaking, I was not here to defend it. So there was a lot of people who were very opinionated about it while I was gone, and I want to give those people an opportunity to Okay, Mab, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Can you make a what's the premise, please? Because I just don't know it. I don't know about it.
Mab has his hand raised first, so.
This isn't so much to argue against it because I can really appreciate the angle of it. But what would you say to, like, I'm from Minneapolis, right? Where it's like the right wing here is like Ilhan Omar, and the left is like the different socialist groupings or whatever. I don't know. Like we need to like take over the unions up here, or the unions are killing the Democrats.
I don't think you can take over those unions, to be honest.
May I also add something?
I think the only way you can fight the Democrats is to kind of promote the increased socialization of labor that's happening, which is like promote, be an accelerationist who's for UBI and the gig economy and stuff. The way to undercut the power of the unions is not to be a union buster, but to just kind of promote the rise of this fourth industrial revolution that's kind of rendering them irrelevant. And it's ambiguous, but I think the real, you gotta start addressing people at a higher socialization of labor. Now, if you address someone at their workplace only, you're also having to institutionalize them at the workplace. If you address them in a way that, if you address them in the way that they're being addressed by these new like online movements and stuff,
well,
it's like if you address them not as on their workplace, but as like someone working a 9-to-5 trying to get their grind, like Andrew Yang does sometimes, right? That's an effective way to undercut the monopoly the Democrats has on a lot of these, through Democrats exercise control through the unions. The way to undercut that is to speak to people not at the level of their workplace, but at the level of their, their grind. Just the bare bones of I don't like this job. I don't care about this job. I'm just here for a 9-to-5. I'm not committed to this fucking stupid job. That's pretty much how it has to be.
Sorry, what I meant to say was that the Democrats have completely taken over the unions. So it's like building the culture, like building community is basically what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's freeing people from both their workplaces and their unions, and this is what Rev likes to talk about a lot. Free time, right? Cut the labor hours. More free time. More free time. People aren't attached to these bullshit jobs that don't matter. And that's how you really fight the bureaucracy and the Democrats, really. It's just promote things that free people from these 9-to-5 jobs and come from that angle. We want people to be free from the 9-to-5.
Yeah, building the new society with the old.
Daytime, you can go ahead.
So as far as I understand, MAGA communism is essentially an American form of Marxist-Leninism. Is that like correct?
Yep.
But my question is, like, Marxist-Leninism came about in the Soviet Union as a direct response to, like, okay, the German Revolution failed. We're gonna have to develop our own country now. I mean, do you kind of agree with that?
No, I think Marxism-Leninism is the sum total of Marxism and Lenin combined with Lenin's unique contributions, even before the revolutionary period.
All right, but do you think that
Lenin's response to Stalin's response to the aftermath of the revolution, I mean, that was an application of Leninism afterwards, right? Leninism really makes a difference at the level of before the revolution. And then after that, it's like, that's when it becomes something you have to learn from and develop and implement.
Okay, but look, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm a scholar in any of these topics, but the Bolshevik Revolution would have played out a little bit differently if, like, the German Revolution had succeeded. Like, do you agree with that?
I think there was no chance in hell for the German Revolution to have succeeded. And if it did, then they would have had to face the same problems with Britain or America or the rest of the world. I mean, there would never have been a simultaneous world revolution. Never. Not possible.
I'm not talking about like a world revolution, but I mean, going back to God, what's his name? Like the predecessor of Vladimir Lenin. Like, I think his name was Georgy Plekhanov.
Plekhanov.
Or
No, there was an expectation that it would fail if it didn't spread. I agree with that. Even Lenin had that expectation. But
Plekhanov, as far as I understand, was like his attitude was if socialists take over in Russia without the help of communists in Germany, then the Russians would essentially have to undergo like a developmental phase.
I know, but when it comes to revolutionary strategy, when it came to basically how do you build the party, there were disagreements with Plekhanov that Lenin had that already betrayed or proved the difference of logic. So Leninism was always destined to be in one country, socialism in one country, but there was a unique logic of Lenin's discovery that Lenin himself did not take to its fullest conclusion on the eve of the revolution, as far as his expectations. The reason Stalin he's called the best student of Lenin is because he did do that when he was building the Soviet state. Because the basic point of Leninism, it's actually very simple. Like if you want to, so what is Leninism 101? It's basically Marxism with a dialectic of form. So not only is Marxism dialectical, also the form of Marxism is dialectical. And that's pretty much the key to the whole thing, right? All of the concepts of Marxism are not dead forms. The proletariat is not a dead form. It's a
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Just assume that I have an IQ of 70. Okay, explain it to me on those terms. I don't understand dialectics.
Lenin,
right?
okay, yeah. Leninism basically.
I'm retarded, bro.
Yeah, Leninism basically just means that the revolution is going to be the workers and the peasants, not just workers. Cities.
But Plekhanov essentially believed that if
Plekhanov
the German
was not Lenin.
industrial...
Plekhanov
Go ahead.
was not Lenin, though.
Okay, he wasn't, but he kind of was a predecessor.
No, but here's the thing: Plekhanov and Mensheviks believed Russia needed to enter into stages, even as far as its revolutionary strategy was concerned. Lenin is the one who said, no, we can just have an alliance between the workers and peasants. We don't need to wait for the liberal bourgeoisie to bring about a liberal revolution. We don't need to wait for liberal bourgeoisie to challenge the czarist autocracy because they're themselves in bed with the autocracy.
But the thing is, like, the Bolshevik government kind of strong-armed the peasants, like, in order to procure more resources in the cities.
During the Civil War.
Sure, that's a civil... You know what? Here's my bigger question.
Dude, you're just kind of hopping around. I don't like... You just can't keep hopping around. You gotta stick to something.
I'm hopping around because, you know, I'm not, like, an expert in this history.
Get to the point, then. Get to your point.
Okay. So America is probably the most advanced capitalist country in this world, right?
Okay.
And Marxism-Leninism was kind of this ideology that came about in a peasant country.
Sure.
So what is there for us left to develop, you know?
Yeah, well, that's not something a 70 IQ person would ask, if that's what you're saying. But to answer your question in the most simplistic way, if you're asking a complicated, contrived question, you're expecting the most simple possible response, which is not really something you can expect with that kind of question. It's a theoretical question. Well, here's my theoretical answer in the most simplistic possible terms. The paradigm of linear development has nothing to do with Marxism. That's Whig progressivism. This idea that the reason Russia was different because it wasn't as developed is undialectical. Russia was just as developed as the rest of Europe. It's exactly why Western Marxism was never able to prevail in Russia. You needed Leninism. And just like how Leninism couldn't even apply to China. Because these are different civilizations with a completely different reality that doesn't follow the trajectory of Western European history. As far as what lessons we can draw from Leninism in the West and in America in particular, I can answer that. When it comes to the relationship between Marxism and the institution of the proletariat, Marxists never actually drew the lessons of Leninism in having an institutional year zero and drawing from the rural stratum because of this arrogance that, oh, we're already so advanced, rurality means nothing anymore. But even agrarian populism was a fundamental factor of something like the New Deal happening.
That's true.
So there was a huge blind spot of Marxists in being able to recognize the enduring significance of geography and rurality in particular. Also, the fact the peasant wasn't significant because it was some transient class from the past. There's like a fundamental significance of the peasantry that endures even in America. I mean, the Midwest, Rust Belt, small town worker, I mean, these are sociological peasants. They're proverbial peasants. They have the same sociological and structural relation to politics that Russian peasants did at the time. So that's a dynamic that they were never able to appreciate. And the whole point of MAGA communism, the American form of Leninism, is about going down to the country, uniting the most advanced form of technological proletariat, right? The gig economy and all this new proletarianization that's happening, the Amazon workers, the Amazon labor union. Uniting that with the so-called backward Rust Belt, kind of like, small town flyover America. That's the unity of the workers and peasants. So that's what it is, really. Like communism plus MAGA it's like the workers and the peasants, if you want to think about it.
And is MAGA made up of
Peasants.
workers, really, though?
Yeah, but it's like this fusion. It's like workers, but also sociological peasants. From an institutional and cultural perspective, they're peasants, right? They're not proletarianized. They are becoming proletarianized, but they're really like not yet proletarianized, really. I mean, are they the proletariat? Yeah, they're a form of the proletariat. That's why I'm talking about the dialectical form, because it gets crazy, right? It's like it's a form of the proletariat. Is it the proletariat right now? Well, it depends on what you mean. Like, are they becoming proletarianized? Yes. Are they the result of the most advanced form of proletarianization? No. That's more like an Uber Eats person, or like, an Amazon worker or something. Proletarianization is something that never ended. It's like, and if it never ended, that means, the peasants never really ended either. It's like a cycle.
I mean, it's interesting you say that because there's this writer, Marxist writer, by the name of Clyde Barrow, and he argued that as capitalism goes forward, people are just going to become more lumpenized. Go ahead.
I think that's not really unique. I think the lumpenization is called declassing, and it's happened across all of history. I think declassing is so overly
MAGA
represented.
is made up of people who want to be the proletariat, just as Trump
thank you
wanted
so
to be
much,
the
Chris
industrial
Morlock. Holy
capitalist.
shit, man! Really, thank you so much, man. Well, sorry, I was responding to a dono, but declassing is mostly overemphasized because the creative class of writers and all these people, I mean, they're themselves in danger of declassing. So in media, in movies, you always see declassing, right? It's so emphasized. That's because there's always been an alliance between the lumpen and the bourgeoisie. The working class is more numerous than lumpen and declassed people, right? It's just that they don't get representation. Their interests aren't represented, their way of life, their state of mind, their mentality, that's not really given proper respect.
But we do have like more people who are heroin addicts every year.
Being
More
addicted
homeless
to
people every year,
drugs
more
doesn't.
prisoners every year.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you're lumping if you're addicted to drugs. You know, the devastation of working class communities is a real thing. But what makes or break the lumping thing is like, is this some kind of like way of life in and for itself? Like, completely being completely unemployed, no job, being a drug addict or a criminal, being like a homeless vagrant. You know, that's not really the majority.
All right, fair enough. I think my opinion, just to finish this off, is the old school, early 20th century stuff is over with.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're left with what we have now, which is more, gig economy workers who are not, they don't necessarily have work or a steady income. More prisoners, more, all these kind of lumpenized elements.
I don't see the gig economy people as lumpenized at all, but
I mean, I think Marx and Engels claim that like dock workers were essentially lumpen because they never had steady work.
That may have been true for his time. Said that, but that's not. I don't see the applicability today.
The dynamic of their work was essentially they go to the dock and pray to God that they're selected so that they can earn wages, and that is essentially what Uber Eats is.
No, it's not what it is. Uber Eats corresponds to a completely different revolution in the forces of production. It's not comparable. You know, sociological lumpen. That's all criminality and stuff. That's not just having a precarity of
it's
job.
not just.
Also, the gig economy is not necessarily like that at all. It's just like it's a different way of earning a wage, which is not based on begging, by the way. It's just like it's just not institutionalized and standardized. It's corresponding to the decentralized information technology we have today.
Yeah, I mean it's not steady at all. Also, like,
it doesn't have to be steady to be. Just because you don't have a steady income doesn't make one lumpen. It's just a very bizarre.
But one bad recession could, I think, turn any gig worker into like a radical reactionary. But you know what?
I would probably disagree with what constitutes a reactionary. Because gig is like, I just think that word, like, I don't really know what you mean by that.
Reactionary as in anti-worker.
I think you just mean someone who's not domesticated by an institution. Well, like, the working class never had these, like, all of these cultural... I mean, there's a lot of assumptions you make, sounds like, because people who work the, like, standardized jobs that are associated with the 19th century today, I mean, those people are very institutionalized. Like, you know, if you work at an office or if you're a grad student, it's very institutionalized. It's a very steady income. So they're like, oh, I have more in common with the worker of Marx than these gig workers, right? Or these truckers. Because
that's not what I'm saying, but
yeah, but you know, it's just not true though, because the cultural institutionalization and the political institutionalization did not happen. That wasn't a thing for the 19th century industrial proletariat. The only equivalence was the labor aristocracy, which was, you know, a class enemy for Marx. So, you know, a lot of Marxists just assume that, oh, if the workers are more institutionalized, they're going to be less reactionary, when the opposite is actually true. Less institutionalization, especially when you're talking about the decentralized information economy that we're entering into, that's freeing people from these institutions. That's a revolution in the productive forces. So saying that the gig economy people are going to be reactionary is actually a reactionary point of view, because it's it's like from a standpoint that ascribes progress to an outdated era of mode of production, the forces of production.
Well, if I can give you an example, like tech workers, I myself am a tech worker, one of the lowliest bunch, because I work for a pretty shitty company. But in my experience, they're generally speaking like they're all for one, you know, like they
Yeah, but
always only look out for themselves.
yeah, but okay.
And
What's your point? But I think tech workers are more likely to unionize than Uber workers are.
well, that might be for like legal reasons, but
No, it's not just for
like,
legal reasons. It's because you share a workplace, you share an institution. You all
that might be
share an
true.
institution, right? You're all socialized in the same way.
But then again, we're all working from home nowadays. But
But even when you're working at home, you just have such a great deal of time to kind of like, think about um yourselves and your workplace, and it's kind of like you're consolidated in an institution that you're loyal to, that you have to be loyal to. So you're like already part of some like steady collective. Uber, drivers are not. They just use the app to make money. They're not like working for the same company. They're working for themselves using the technology of a company to do it.
but you saw with like the Fed raising interest rates that a bunch of us got laid off, like all of a sudden. Like
Yeah.
people are getting laid off
Yeah,
now
I
at
think
Twitter.
people in
Facebook.
your situation very much are becoming lumpenized and declassed. And I actually
Yeah,
see
that's
that
true.
with Antifa, and most socialists and leftists are made up of people like that, right? People who like work in similar jobs you do, and they're either dissatisfied with it or they do get laid off or something. But that's
Uh,
not the position of the majority of the working class, because the majority of the working class is either coming from the factory jobs of the 20th century, or they're entering into the gig economy of the 21st. And gig economy, it's not just Uber Eats and Uber and all these service stuff. There's also like, trades and welders and all this kind of stuff. Even this is being subsumed. Plumbers and all this kind of stuff. So
I kind of agree with what you're saying, but just to add to that, like my greater point is like a lot of us, from the gig workers of Uber Eats and Uber to a lot of tech workers working on bullshit apps, like we're a part of the leisure economy. And
yeah,
once
but
things start to go bad, we're the first ones to
that's
go.
just kind of focusing on the use value, not really the form of the relation to production. So Uber, for example, like the way Uber, the socialization of the gig economy works is that it's not about the use value. It's about this way of, the combination of information technology, the decentralizing information technology, with what it means to work and earn income. It's not necessarily about what you're doing, because like an OnlyFans prostitute is using that technology, but they're obviously not working, right? So I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's about the use value, or I'm not saying I'm talking about the use value, because there can be use values which do indeed, it's a parasitical, almost lumpen form of labor.
Yeah.
But I do think there's this prejudice Western Marxists have, inherent one, where they really, even when it comes to like how do blue collar workers relate to their workplace, they're not really institutionalized, because there's more of an emphasis placed on their work. And when you have more of an emphasis placed on the work, the institution has less of a significance. When it's more based on the institution and its organization, and it's not going to be about work, it's going to be about how does the institution execute its protocols. The tech worker, you work for an institution that has protocols to execute, that has commands to execute, technologies and IPs to whatever, codes, whatever. I mean, this is so there's going to be more institutional socialization there than at a factory work, because it's not really about what you're doing, it's about how you're doing it.
I get what you mean. Actually, like I remember like watching some video of yours where you were arguing like MAGA are those who don't depend on institutions and
Yeah, that's what I
non-MAGA,
mean.
anti-MAGA.
Yeah.
Yeah, but would you consider like the average OnlyFans whore to be dependent on an institution? I mean, I guess OnlyFans is an
Actually,
institution.
no, actually, not OnlyFans is not really an institution, but I would say I think the culture that gives rise to that use value, right? The content of what they're doing is definitely an institutionalized kind of like, you know, when it comes to mainstream media and the big tech
I see what you mean.
institutions of culture, like censorship, that's, you can't really shame them for what they're, I mean, there's, yeah, in the universities which have propagated the sex work ideology, that the use value is definitely institutional. It's just that what they're doing is not. If that makes sense.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
But I guess just to ask you a bigger question, open-ended here.
Yeah, this has got to be the last one because it's like.
But Marx said somewhere in like the Communist Manifesto that like as capitalism develops, like more people will become proletarianized. And like I think today, based on the basic definition of proletariat, like we have 13% of our working population as productive workers.
Yeah.
Like,
I
the
think
rest of us
Marx
are kind of
was not describing a linear prediction that stretches into eternity, but a logic. I think the logic holds true even today, but it's not necessarily a prediction about like a state of being. It's more like a logic of how the process works. And that logic can fit within a linear paradigm of time, but it can also fit within a cyclical paradigm of time, right? Where it's like it's a logic that continually reproduces itself in new ways rather than realizes and exhausts itself fully in this eschatological way. So I think there's different ways to think about it. Now, what Marx thought about it, he certainly could not have adopted the viewpoint that a full proletarianization would occur because he witnessed after decades that it didn't happen. And specifically in England, the so-called full proletarianization corresponded to the rise of a new middle class and also a labor aristocracy. The most advanced country, England, obviously was the least revolutionary politically. So Marx took note of this, and I think his view is much less conclusive than most people assume.
I definitely agree with that. But my conclusion is that Marxism-Leninism is not the way. Unfortunately, I think gay, faggy, libertarian socialism might be the way.
All right, well, hold on.
I don't take pride in that.
We can't. Hold on. Yeah, we can't. So, all right. Anyway, that's got to be it for that.
How about I mean? Go to the next guy.
Yeah. So I think that's it for today. Kind of got. Yeah, I think that's it for today. All right, guys. We'll tune in next time. All right. Thank you all for tuning in, and thank you for the donos. I appreciate all that, man. I'm sorry if I wasn't able to respond to all the donos, by the way. If I did, but for those of you that donated, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it a lot. Oh, wow, Red South. Holy fuck. Thank you, man. Holy shit. Holy fuck. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I really appreciate that, man. Holy fuck. I usually don't make a lot doing these Twitter spaces, but I love doing them. And I'm going to continue doing them. But I appreciate it, man. Thank you, Red South. I appreciate you a lot. You guys believe it? I'm going to the gym. Isn't that fucking crazy? It's so late. Why is it not going through? Why is it not going through? Thank you so much, Red South. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate it a lot. Is there anything I wanted to... Yeah, there's this Joe Sims mailbag. Maybe we'll save that for tomorrow. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve. I don't know. I don't know. Well, it was very late today. I'm going to be honest. It's very late. I think I do gotta go. I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys. I'll see you around. I'll see you around. See you around, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye, guys. See you later. Yo, Vi! What up, Vi? How you doing, man? I'll see you guys later. See you guys tomorrow. Or I'll see you guys... Tomorrow's Christmas Eve. I don't know. I'll do a Christmas stream. I'll dress as Santa or some shit.